All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. We're here for a regular meeting and special meeting for the Yuba City Council. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Harris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Baumgarten.
Here.
Councilmember Cardoza.
Here.
Councilmember Espandola. Here. Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read I accidentally skipped the virtual information here. The governor's declared a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. The governor also issued Executive Order N3320, which directs Californians to follow public health directives, including canceling large gatherings. The executive order also allows local legislative bodies to hold meetings via conference calls while still meeting state transparency requirements. The public's health and well-being are a top priority for the city of Yuba City, and you are urged to take all appropriate health safety precautions. This meeting is utilizing the GoToWebinar application for the live broadcast. For this meeting, we will be using the questions functionality of this tool in order to accommodate public comment. On desktop computers, the questions section of the app is located at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel that is on the right side of your screen. On mobile devices, there is a question mark on the bottom toolbar that opens the question screen. For those who would like to comment during the meeting, please enter your comment into the questions portion of the app and be sure to state the item you will be commenting on. During the public comment of each item, staff will read aloud the comments provided by the public for all to hear for that specific item. Please be timely with your questions, as once the public hearing is closed or the item has been discussed by council and voted on, no more comments will be accepted for that item. And we've already done roll call. May I please ask all of you to stand, and Councilmember Shaw will give us the inspiration, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance, please, by Mr. Ben Moody.
Let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day that we come and get be before you doing the business of this city. Father, we just pray for wisdom beyond our years. Pray that our focus be upon you to give us the guidance that we need to make the best decisions for this community. And we just pray for your wisdom and your safety and your blessings in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you both very much. Mr. City Attorney, do we have any report from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
All right. Any requests to modify the agenda? Move on to item number 1, discussion and action on measures to mitigate impacts of COVID-19.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to provide a brief update related to Sutter County's numbers, and then Ben Moody, Development Services Director, will come up and provide you an update related to outdoor dining. And then the Community Services Director, Brad McIntyre, will come up and provide an update related to community services. So with that, if you recall, the state is monitoring counties for elevated disease transmission, increasing hospitalization, and limited hospital capacity. And right now, Sutter County is on the monitoring list due to the elevated disease transmission. And so if the case rate is greater than 100 per 100,000, or if the case rate is greater than 25 and the positivity is greater than 8%, then you're placed on the monitoring list. And so right now, Sutter County has a case rate of 187.2 per 100,000 and a testing positivity of 10% over the 7-day average. So as of July 20th, we have a total of 539 cases in Sutter County, 4 deceased, and then currently there are 9 hospitalized. If you look here, this should say as of July 20th, the source of infection, you can see a large number of that is contact with known cases, right here. And then a large portion of that is friends, family, or roommates, and then you have coworkers, and then other known source or while providing health care. So again, it's the large majority is related to contact with known cases. And then also as of July 20th, when you look at cases within Sutter County by residents, 416 of those are within Yuba City. Nothing's really changed with city operations in terms of City Hall still open Monday through Friday. Animal services Tuesday through Saturday, and then the police department is closed to public access. And then all other facilities continue to remain closed to the public with the exception of when they're providing programs at Gap. And with that, I would like to invite Ben Moody up here, please.
Okay, so the outdoor dining policy was definitely taken off this last week and a half with the new order from the public health officer and the governor. And so this policy that we put in place basically in May, it was really timid at that time, and with kind of the unknown. And then now with this new order and the uncertainty of if we're ever going to open back up or what that timeline is, we've seen quite an interest in that outdoor dining policy. So we've pretty much had almost every restaurant inquire or take action to move forward. And so just a few of the restaurants that have moved forward with the outdoor dining policy include the Mall Food Court, Dancing Tomato, IHOP, Linda's, Happy Viking, Two Bits, Los Charros, Midtown, Cool Hand Luke's, Guadalajara, Red Robin, Iguanas, and Applebee's. And we're also working with Katsalupe, Star of India, Huckleberries, Marcello's, Strings, and not including the existing outdoor dining that was already in place with that's been expanded through Sutter Buttes Brewery, the Lambert House, and then also Sopatai and Justin's Kitchen. And so recently, council also worked with the council and city staff worked with the DBA about expanding a promenade type of closure, and they worked through that with the recent change, and Diana will have more feedback on that later on in this meeting. Probably with a site plan. And so with that, really, we've been working, a lot of them are jumping out there and doing the work where we're not interacting with them until after they've already done a certain level. But we understand, we're trying to help with the businesses to get them up and going as soon as we can. And so city staff and fire is working with those businesses to make sure they're safe, they have the accessible path to travel, and they're meeting any sort of food quality and different parameters that are in that. And so really we're trying to keep track of them. We're trying to get a list and then do a site review. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this. Bring Brad up.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Just a quick update as it relates to our parks to start with. Just a reminder to our public, Regency Park and Shanghai Garden Park splash pads are open still. They are open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. That time seems to be working well with social distancing, which I talked about at a previous council meeting, that being an issue. Playgrounds are still closed, and obviously that will probably be for quite a while. On the recreation side, we have swim lessons that is now in its second week. We currently have 110 participants swimming 30 minutes a day. Staff has done a great job by managing parents and siblings of watching the participants go through those swim lessons with social distancing again and face masks. We did add this week lap swimming, and if anyone is interested in or listening is interested in signing up for lap swim, you can do so at yubacity.net or call Gautier Aquatic Park at 822-4655. There are currently time slots open in the morning from 9 a.m. to 12:30, and what happens is that a participant would rent the lane for approximately 30 minutes to an hour, depending on their choice. And then we also have 4 lanes open in the evening from 4:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And again, you can register for those online. We will be offering a new session of swim lessons starting next week. It will be our second session. We are anticipating a good turnout as well, and staff will be promoting that as soon as possible. Starting for the first time since the COVID started, we are going to be offering summer camp. We have our first camp starting next week with exactly 9 campers, which is considered a pod for COVID, and recommendation by the CDC. It will be provided at Gray Avenue School. Staff has been training and planning as it relates to COVID protocols, and we're looking forward to providing a safe, fun environment, and really for the children just to kind of break out a little bit, but safe, be as safe as possible, of course. So I'd gladly entertain any questions at this time.
Through the mayor. Mr. McIntyre, it's my understanding that the city has loaned your services to the Department Operations Center. Want to publicly acknowledge you for taking that on. Perhaps it would be worth the public's knowledge as to exactly how the city of Yuba City is participating with the dock.
Sure. So in the format that I'm participating in right now, it's really to replace Dr. Rice. Dr. Rice is running the DOC, and he reports directly to Dr. Liu. Dr. Rice has been working since the middle of March, pretty much 7 days a week, and he has a cell phone that is connected to, and people are reaching out to him on a continuous basis. And really what the group that we're overseeing and that I'm a part of right now is tracing, which, as people are aware of, they are a little behind. They've been in the process of hiring. They hired and brought on 6 last week, and I believe 5 or 4 more got trained as well of this week. So that's what I'm doing. To be quite honest, I'm learning as I go as well. I am not a doctor. Just want to make that clear to everybody. But no, it's I'm enjoying it, and I think there are a lot of people that have been working very hard that kind of needs a break, because this is, as I say it to my friends and family, this is going to be, and it's looking like it's going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. So, thank you.
And just confirming that's okay. Just real quick, even though we don't have any questions, that doesn't mean we're not behind you, and appreciate everything you do. Is the reason we don't have questions, because we talk every day just about all these things, and we're very well versed. But it's important for the public to hear what you folks are doing, which is a result of a lot of work behind the scenes with you and your staff, and we really appreciate it. So, do we have any public comment on item number 1?
There is one from Thomas Burns, but all that it says is public comment. There's nothing else behind it, so.
Okay, so we'll move on to public comment in general. Item number 2. Appearance of interested citizens due to the coronavirus, comments are to be provided by email to cityclerk@yubacity.net. Oral comments by phone or in person are currently not available. And then, Tom, if you are watching, we did not get your full comment, just public comment. So feel free to try it again. Any other comment by chance?
None received.
Okay. Consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. And once again, any public comment on the consent calendar?
None.
Thank you. And we have a motion, one item, which is the minutes from July 7th.
Through the mayor,
Yep.
move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay.
Second.
First and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? None. Thank you. Business items, number 4, Greater Sacramento Economic Council presentation presented by Diana Langley, and then I believe Barry is going to be on the phone.
Yes.
Not already.
So we have a presentation from...
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We have Barry Broom on the phone, who's the president and CEO of Greater Sacramento Economic Council. And so he will be giving the presentation tonight. I will simply be advancing the slides for him. And with that, Barry, if you'd like to go ahead and get started.
I think, if you don't mind, my name is Steve Plow. I was asked to introduce Barry.
Okay, great.
I'm and then thank you, Mayor Harris and Council, for having us here to make the presentation. Can you hear me okay?
We can, Steve. Thank you very much. It's good to hear your voice again.
Okay, same here. Well, as I mentioned, I'm an original member of the GSAC, and also I'm a new business person in Yuba City. I purchased the Toyota dealership about 4 months ago, and the reason we wanted to come and talk to you, and Barry will talk to you specifically, is that GSAC is a real unique organization because of its private and public partnership. And the whole basis for GSAC is to do really two things. One, to attract new businesses to the region, and to hopefully retain businesses that might think about leaving the region. And it's no surprise to all of you that California businesses are continually solicited to move into other markets. I use the word region because it's not a secular market anywhere anymore. And the region, the Sacramento region, it's not just a regional market, but it's also a national market. And we clearly are much, much stronger as partners, the public and private partnership. And this has proven to be successful in other markets, and the track record for GSAC so far is absolutely outstanding. I've seen many organizations in my 40 years of doing business in the region that have attempted to do the things that we're doing now, but really with very, very little success because they don't have the resources in terms of people or dollars and so forth. And we bridge those two areas of concern. So with that, not to take up any more of your time tonight, if any of you have any questions or would like to talk to me about this as a private business person, you can get my personal information from Barry, and I think Mayor Harris also has the information, and you're welcome to call me anytime. And I want to mention, it is delightful being in business in Yuba City. I don't think I've come across a community that is so engaging. We've had the sheriff stop by during with this virus and all the incidents and stuff going on there, and we're off to a good start. So we're really looking forward to a long future in the area. With that, I'll introduce Barry. Barry is the president, CEO of GSAC, and he'll have a lot of wonderful things to share with you. Thank you. And thank you for having us tonight.
And thank you, Steve. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Great having Steve on the call. As you know,
Barry, I don't know if maybe somebody needs to turn something off. We're getting an echo.
We're getting quite an echo. Yeah, so it says the organizer can mute me.
Just to mute?
Just to mute your computer, please.
It's just to mute your computer.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Hey, Barry, just one thing. I have to sign off because I'm actually in another board meeting. But again, if anybody wants to contact me, Barry has my contact information. Thanks again.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Mayor and Council. And, I think it's been, an exciting experience. I mean, the goal of this organization was to build a single market strategy with CEOs essentially underwriting the organization and then allowing the communities to participate at a level that was reasonable and would allow those communities to participate come rain or come shine. So during tough times, good times, the communities have a central place to plug into, partner, work, and develop. So I'll take you through, I won't make it too painful, I promise. I'll take you through a quick overview. We tend to be very technical, and I know sometimes we lose folks, but as Steve was saying, the greater Sacramento region is a single market. How that single market behaves depends upon how well we do with investment and jobs. So everything from how the airport operates to the connection between Yuba College and Sacramento State and UC Davis, how intertwined agricultural science expertise is with the ag community in Yuba City and Yolo and Woodland. All of the value propositions here are a single seamless experience for companies. And building a strategy around the market and getting everybody to engage in a set of activities that improves what we're doing competitively, and then translating that message outwardly to capital and companies and investment is our external strategy. And then internally, we take our expertise and our experiences in the marketplace, and we provide those to city managers, mayors, economic development corporations, or however the local economic development group is structured. So it's a regional model because that's how capital, people, talent, money, and income flows. And then your local model plugs into it and gets a set of resources it can't replicate on its own. So it's a little bit of a shared economy model. So I'll take you through the quick steps. It's a little troubling here. Here we go. So your first slide, we just wanted to get right down to economic impact models, because at the end of the day, the way we try to get ourselves to be evaluated is you get a return on investment as a community, and you get a set of services you can't create on your own. The kind of cachet value-added play is you get a guy like Steve Plow in the middle of your community. So Steve can be on this board hearing about all the great things in Yuba City. One of the highlights of Yuba City is you produce more of your jobs locally than any community in the region. He hears all the great things going on. So when he's ready to make an investment, he's heard nothing but great things about Yuba City. He's got a relationship with the mayor. And then, obviously, you did the rest, and he explained his wonderful experience. Just for the record, Steve's investment in the Greater Sacramento Economic Council is $1 million. So the CEOs, the 30 founders, made $1 million commitment to the organization, and then the smaller CEOs have made a $500,000 commitment. And that allows the communities to get all these services for a fraction of what the cost would be. So just to show a little bit about how money moves to the economy on direct, indirect, and induced impacts, if you go to the next slide. So one of the things that basically hurts our community is we're a government town. So a lot of times people get frustrated when I say publicly, and I do from time to time, I don't want us to be a government town. I want us to be the state capital of California. If you look at government, it produces 0.2 jobs. So there's not a supply chain or a set of software engineers that are helping the government. It's a direct job impact. And when too much of your economy is dependent on it, which is what's been historically problematic for our region, the overall economy doesn't grow quickly, efficiently, productively. So our job is really to build an industry model, food and ag, financial tech, life sciences, biotech, high-tech manufacturing. These are industries. And the community's behaviors around those industries, when we're successful with a company like Centene, it throws off 4 jobs in the region. If you're sitting on government, the government barely throws off 0.2 of a job. So the more industry focused we are, the better those jobs are to local people, right? They go to residents, they open up restaurants, they're able to help with salons, they can help a car dealer, they can help a grocery store. And the more dynamic the economy is, the higher the incomes are into those local service economies. So that's the trick. You're involved in Greater Sacramento Economic Council for services and a return, and we work on a set of behaviors that aren't typically able to be produced by a city or an EDC. And then as those behaviors increase and get better, you get more Centenes, you land Major League Soccer, Aggie Square at UC Davis is going to be a very powerful economic player for the region, including out to Yuba County, Yuba City, and Sutter County. You get a healthier and a stronger economy. So if you move to the next slide, this is the other reason why you work regionally. You're the highest producer of your own local jobs. So as you can see, you basically produce 35% of your jobs. Some communities produce only 18%, some 23%, some 25%. Most communities rarely produce more than 25% of their economy. So what goes on in the region is really driving Yuba City's economic health, and it's driving the health of your residents. So when a Yuba City resident goes to work at Centene or goes to work at a digital company that came into the community, goes to work at a high-tech manufacturer, they bring that income back to Yuba City. But not all the jobs for Yuba residents can be in Yuba City, and that's one of the reasons why you work in a regional market. The other thing very interesting is 29% of the jobs in Yuba City are not even in the region. So it's amazing, but you do have more residents than I thought that actually get their paycheck out of Menlo Park, Palo Alto, San Jose, San Francisco, and, maybe they own a farm in Yuba City. Maybe that's the family dream. We're going to get lots of land and a beautiful agricultural experience and a small town experience in Yuba City. And, I can telecommute and show up on Mondays and Fridays in Palo Alto. So that 29% is all other parts of California that produces your jobs. Next slide, please. All right, one more, I think. Here we go. I'm getting a little bit of a delayed reaction on the screen there. There we go. Yeah, so this is essentially our overall market performance. So we count about 40% of our direct performance. The reason we do that is the returns are incredibly high. Whenever you look at your financial returns on economic development, you got to be like, how the heck did I get, millions of incomes off of this economic development work? But it's the reason why you see Texas and Washington, states with zero income tax, zero corporate tax, zero capital gains tax. They got plenty of money to run their states because their state governments are lean and their economies are really strong. A dream for us one day in California, at least I'll speak for myself. So as a region, we produce 14,000 jobs, and you can see just local tax revenues are about $76.5 million, and the total community local government revenue for the last 5 years has been $4.5 million. That also throws a lot of income up into the state. So the state collects $129 million on that. The local governments collect $76 million. So it's lucrative for communities if they do it right and build a really strong economic model. Next slide, please. So the other thing, too, is, we're heavily metric. So one of the things, when a CEO puts $1 million into an organization like Steve, they pay a lot of attention to the financials. So we're a very heavily analytically driven organization. We put $250,000 just in analytics. So if you look at Yuba City, Yuba County, Sutter County, all combined regionally, your EDC, you have access to a $250,000 platform that you couldn't create on your own because it's a shared economic model between the CEOs and the community. And then the returns are pretty strong, 9-to-1 on local investment. And this is an algorithm that just basically tracks labor markets, where do people live, where do people work, when a company lands X. So it's a conservative data point, but as you can see, in addition to the services, you get paid back for the investment in the organization. Next slide, please. So without getting too geeky, Danielle, my executive vice president, has like a graduate degree in data science. But, everything from, how we promote the community, like we just did a recent promotion of the mayor. That's a $15,000, product just to produce the hardware on it. We delivered champions programs in Yuba County. Obviously, we did quite a bit of work on the PPP side. I think we put about 517 companies through the PPP process, through webinars. We did one in Yuba City. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, probably more like 45, but an important point of helping communities during a difficult time. We can manage custom data requests for your local community. And then, the secret weapon that you really have and that I want to really sit down and work hard on in the next 2, 3, 4 years is the Yuba Water Agency. Because if we can figure out how to deliver 100% clean power through a water source, that is going to be a requirement that a lot of companies are going to be very interested in as they get put under tremendous pressure to continue to lower their carbon footprint. So as you know, the state regulates us beyond any imagine on carbon footprints. That's now translating to companies like Amazon, Google, even Bear Crop Science. A lot of these big companies are building plans to where they don't produce any carbon and they're carbon neutral. So this water agency, which I know you're very proud of, is one of the 5 or 6 most important regional economic assets. I would put the Yuba Water Agency only behind UC Davis, Sac State, the community college system, and maybe the airport, maybe one other thing. So it's very powerful, and it has a chance to be a lot more dynamic for the community than I think anybody realizes, including folks at the agency. Next slide, please. So one of the questions I get is, how do we work with local economic development groups? So you have an EDC, and it's important that you have somebody on the ground doing the work. So we just did kind of a side-by-side comparison. I read the Yuba Sutter EDC strategic plan, which is coming before you. I thought it was very positive. What would typically happen on something like that is we would develop like the industry and target objectives with the EDC. And a lot, we're still new. We're only 5 years old. So a lot of local communities are still at varied levels of comfort in working with us. There's a lot of pride, obviously, in local economic development leadership. But we can do a lot to elevate, the technical expertise of your on-the-ground experience. So we generate leads, but we don't bring the company to Yuba City or Sutter. That's Sutter and Yuba's job to build the premise for why the company should be there. So we generate market interest, which we're generating right now about 15 companies every 2 weeks, right? We build and develop an innovation system like Aggie Square, which is going to be, a $1 billion project. Well, local entrepreneurs, there's a lot of cool entrepreneurs in Yuba City. How many science enterprises are there in Yuba City that might want a partnership with the Innovation Center? We build tradable industry consortiums. So we work on things like biotech, fintech. Typically, local economic development people work on business networks. We design workforce strategies regionally, very hard to do at the local level. Local economic development people tend to build career pathways. And then obviously we focus on broader issues like the 80, the transit system, the airport. A lot of times you need a local person on the ground talking about things like 5G is a great example. That's something we've been working on for a while. We're in a partnership with some of the big telecom companies on it. Now that we're digitalizing aggressively, that was something that might have been a long-term rural plan that we need to be paying attention to maybe and moving up. And then obviously, we have all the data and research tools. So when major companies talk to our community, it's really a data interface. So we have 2 companies coming back next week in the region. One's a company out of the South, 700 jobs. The other is a publicly traded company in Silicon Valley, about 150 jobs. And really what we're doing is just exchanging data right now with them. How many engineers do you have? What do your registered nurses look like? What's your graduation rate? What's going on with your 18 to 34 populations? Do you capture your college students? So it's really spreadsheets. And after sometimes it's a year and a half of just exchanging the evidence with their analytic people, and then they come into the market and take a look at us. It's usually a day. One of the things that I've had to train my own team is when a company comes to town or gets on a call with us, it might be the only call we have, and we got to have our ducks in a row and go in and close. So that's a great example of, a couple of companies that are in here right now, and most of our conversation's been just analytics and evidence. So I think from a regional standpoint, our economy's getting more sophisticated. We moved from 40 to 33% dependent upon government. Our goal is to take ourselves from 33% dependent upon government to get to 24%. That's going to take about 24 to 32,000 jobs in the next 10 years. Those jobs will have to be tradable in that nature. If you remember that supply number I showed you, tradable job creates 4 more jobs in the community. So what I like to say to the folks that like being a government economy, it takes 5 government jobs to create 1 local job. 1 local industry job creates 5 local jobs. So our job is to move that needle further and further away from government, more into industry. The incomes are higher. Your small businesses get contracts. They pay higher income for their services. All tides rise. And that's also going to be something that's going to help us on inclusion. So I think there's a lot of deeper strategies we can go into. Now that we're more digitalized, I think we'll do more work on retention expansion. We've talked about major projects with your power facility, which I think is an untapped gem. The possible of pursuing a BYU location, which I think you have, might take a few years, but that's something we ought to be working on. How do you connect Yuba College and Sac State and UC Davis? And then obviously you get all the services and branding experiences. Plus, the mayor sits on the board with Steve Plow, who's now a huge fan of Yuba City. And he sits on there with Kevin Nagel and Gary May from UC Davis and Robert Nelson from Sac State. So your ability to have an audience with the top decision makers are there too. So the returns are there, the work's there. We're very proud of you and all the great things you're doing. It makes me feel fantastic to hear Steve Clow talk about your community that way. We'll make sure he does that on a social media platform going forward. And, I want to thank all of you for your time and energy. We're excited about the future. Our numbers are pretty good right now. We think we're going to surprise people how well we're going to do in the future. And I wanted to make myself available for any questions. So, Mayor, thank you for having me tonight. Council, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Barry. Do we have any questions, Council? Any public comment by chance? Did Tom get a chance to resubmit?
He did.
Okay, is it related to this item or?
Not really.
All right. We'll hold that. We'll give him the courtesy of answering his question, though. Barry, it doesn't look like we have any further questions. I want to thank you for your time, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your time.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
And thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's go ahead with Tom's question. I want to get that for him.
It's more of a statement.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, there are a lot of us who believe in the Bible and believe we're a Christian nation, regardless of what Barack Obama has to say about it. Everything that is taking place with this COVID pandemic seems to be lining up with what the Bible says about end times prophecies. The war on cash that is taking place, the so-called coin shortage, that is truly a lie. We are not that stupid. The move to have your neighbors and businesses to be snitches for the government, outrageous. The absolute stupidity that is taking place, for instance, destroying the livelihoods of individuals and business. Being forced to move your business activity outdoors. I could go on. Bowing to the governor who has extremely overstepped the constitutional authority. Churches closing their doors. Sad to say, most Americans are now unable of critical thinking. They have been brainwashed that government is to be their protector. On the other hand, I have found quite a few free thinkers as myself, both Republicans and Democrats. They seem to have a common theme. They value personal liberty. I believe the council should open up the chambers back to the public to attend meetings. The people need to be there to interact in person. I was planning to send in a cleaner draft of my thoughts, but ran out of time. Commenting on this last presentation, I did bring that in, the form of government that is outlined in the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution is a Republican form of government, not what this guy is describing, not regionalism. Public-private partnerships is fascism. Government has seriously overstepped their role.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any more?
No.
All right, we will go on to item number 5, Yuba City Economic Development District 2025 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, otherwise known as CEDS. Welcome, Diana.
Good evening. So I believe that we have Brenda Stranix on the phone to provide a presentation related to the CEDS. So
right.
Brenda, are you there? Cynthia, are you there? Are you muted?
I heard something.
We heard something.
Brenda is here. Brenda is here. I don't know why we're not hearing her, but.
Was she planning on speaking?
So Brenda, if you haven't done so, we need you to call into the conference call number so that you have an opportunity to address council.
Please unmute. I'm on the call. That's from Cynthia Roderick.
She's telling us to unmute her?
That's just the comment that just came in.
Cynthia Roderick said, please unmute.
Oh, I'm on the call, not sure why it's Brenda. So,
All right, well, I'm going to ask maybe the technical people to work on that, and we're going to move on. Spencer, are you prepared to go on to number 6 in the interim? All right, this is to provide $10,000 in conduit financing for the new Ampla Health Clinic in Yuba City.
do I need to unmute her on this?
I'm sorry, 10 million. I forgot some zeros. What did I say? 10,000. 10 million.
Should I just say they need, have, what they called into the,
Good morning, or good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The item I'm bringing before you tonight, if approved, will allow the city to assist Ampla Health to acquire the lowest cost financing available for the construction of a new health clinic serving Yuba City. I do also have on the phone monitoring, waiting to interject or answer questions, Brian Quint of Quint and Timig LLP, who's bond counsel. And I have Anita Luck with Alisher and Winder LLP as representing city attorney. And I don't know if they're on the phone or not, but we might have Grant Wilson, who's the financial advisor hired by Ampla Health for this deal, and Kathy Walker, who's Ampla Health's CFO, Chief Financial Officer. Ampla Health was founded in 1964 to serve seasonal and migrant farm workers and low-income populations, but has grown and now offers services to all people, regardless of their ability to pay. The project is going to be a new health clinic, about 11,830 square feet, and refinancing of outstanding debt with a total value of $10 million. The project will be at 355 Samuel Drive in Yuba City, which is just off of Garden Highway. And it's going to provide better access to affordable health in an underserved community. As a nonprofit corporation, Ampla Health is not able to take advantage of tax-exempt financing without the issuance of securities by a city such as Yuba City. Ampla Health hired a financial advisor, Grant Wilson, that reached out to me to pitch the idea of helping, and bond counsel, Brian Quint of Quint and Timig, has represented the city throughout the planning and has drafted the documents in the agenda packet for this item. Anita Luck is with city attorney City Attorney Chaffin, and is very knowledgeable about bonds in general, has also helped guide me through the process. The structure of this financing and the details would be so much more complicated if the sale were to be, the sale of the certificates of participation was to be public and to hundreds of purchasers, but Ampla has a single buyer for all $10 million of the certificates in a private placement that is First Foundation Bank of Roseville, California. The city's commitment in the transaction is to give up our ability to issue tax-exempt bonds for the remainder of the calendar year, which we were not going to do anyway. We have no planned projects lined up and are actually running out of time to even produce that kind of funding for that type of project by December 31st, due to the logistics of bond financing and project planning. However, should an emergency arise, the city may still issue such debt by statute. The proposed structure is a certificates of participation financing where a payment stream made by the city, which comes from payments made by Ampla, will be certified and sold to investors. Under the first installment sale agreement, Ampla will sell its facilities to the city, and the city will agree to make purchase payments to Ampla over 21 years. Under the second installment sale agreement, the city will sell the facilities back to Ampla, and Ampla will agree to make installment payments to the city over 21 years. The city's obligation is solely limited to the payments made by Ampla and has no obligation to spend any city funds. Both payment streams are assigned to the trustee, U.S. Bank, which will convert the payments into certificates of participation. In this proposed private placement financing, as opposed to a public offering, First Foundation Bank has agreed to purchase the certificates of participation in exchange for receiving the payments over 21 years plus interest. Both sale agreements, the certificate purchase agreement, and a trustee agreement will be executed simultaneously at the close of the sale. AMPLA fully reimburses city staff time and attorney's fees in the cost of issuance process, which comes from the $10 million. The city is fully indemnified in this transaction by all parties, and First Foundation Bank has acknowledged in a contract that there is no circumstance for which the city will issue a payment on this debt. There will be a public hearing, and it's under TEFRA, which is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act. And the hearing is precedent to the issue of tax-exempt obligations. So it's because of the tax-exempt status of these obligations that we must conduct a public hearing. So the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing, approve the TEFRA resolution, and then approve the city resolution directing certain actions. Oops, did I miss a slide? And then I'm ready for any questions. And again, just as a reminder, we have the bond counsel and city attorney on the phone.
All right, any questions from council? We can do public comment right now. We have any public comment by chance?
Not on this.
All right, were you going to say something? Sure, we can do that. I think that's a good idea. Why don't we move forward with public hearing on the item? We'll open that up. And again, do we have any public comment?
None.
We have none. Okay, hearing none or seeing none, we'll close that. Now, if you have anything.
Yeah, through the mayor. Mr. Morrison, I get the whole process of what we're doing in the tax exempt, but my only concern is 21 years, if something was to go awry, can this negatively affect our credit rating? Because the bonds, we're the conduit for it, even though we've been, indemnified, protected, hold harmless. But could it, at any point, negatively impact our credit rating?
So I'm going to say no, and I'm going to invite bond counsel to chime in on this as well. Brian, would you unmute your phone and mute your computer and address the question?
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, I'd like to confirm what Mr. Morrison said. There's no circumstance under which this transaction could affect the credit rating or credit worthiness of the city. The market understands that this is a conduit transaction, that the city is acting purely as a conduit in order to assist AMPLA, and there's no way that this would have a negative impact. In particular, as Mr. Morrison indicated, as a private placement, there's only one borrower, one lender here. And even in a public offering scenario, it would be unlikely. In a private placement scenario, the chance that anybody would even bring any question to the city is infinitesimal. So the answer is no.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I just wanted that on the record so the public would understand that there's literally no risk to the city for this.
An attendee in listen-only mode.
Okay. So thank you for any of the call-in. People can mute now, as we can hear some feedback from that side. But thank you, Mr. Quint, for that clarification. Any other questions?
Through the mayor. I don't know if this is a question for you or for the attorney, or maybe there's no answer to my question. I'm just going to ask it because it struck me in listening to Barry talk about the Greater Sacramento and the council and the impact of the job development. So I was curious to know will the city then require for this potential building of 10 million, the construction, which is going to be a nice building, will we require prevailing wage, or are we going to require for local hire, local companies to be given the opportunity to have the opportunity to build something in the city, that people work here from the city, that own the companies that could help build this healthcare center? Any discussion on that?
So my response to that initially is that there's nothing in our contract with Ampla Health that requires that. So Ampla Health is building the facility. We will be out of the deal as soon as the closing happens, and the only impact we'll have, or the only input we'll have on the project from that point, would be through development services. So it'd be the normal, however a nonprofit would build a facility in Yuba City, and the permits and requirements that are standard for that type of project will be standard for this project. So we won't have input. As far as the prevailing wage goes, I know that's, I'm not sure if that's a requirement. Brian, would you have input on that?
Sorry, just updating my speaker here. I believe that they do have the requirement of prevailing wage on the transaction, and you can inquire of them. I think they have every expectation that it will be constructed locally. But as you indicated, they're going to try to get the best construction deal that they can and get the best deal that they can. But I'm sure that they're going to be looking locally if possible.
I thank you for saying that, because I think it's really important in these times, in particular with COVID-19. Many people are struggling, and construction jobs are part of that. And we have emphasized, for development to occur in our city. So I would be, as one council member of 5, really looking towards, local hire, local companies, higher skilled labor, and definitely some prevailing wage jobs for our community, because as we've heard from Barry with the Greater Sacramento Council, that these kinds of jobs is really what is going to increase the opportunities here in this community, and we need to be doing more of that. And this is a $10 million opportunity with healthcare, which is skilled facility and skilled type of labor. This is similar, I'm guessing, in design and development to what Adventist did in the extending of the hospital and some of the work related to, not actually as complicated, but interesting to the design of how this is going to look in the future. But I just want to make sure that those opportunities are going to be there, and I'm glad to hear that it sounds like that's the direction.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just want to let Councilmember Espandola know that the building's being built right now. The foundation's in, and they're going. So everything's a go.
Thank you, Councilman Cardozo. But I just want to emphasize again, those points of local companies, local hire, local skilled, and prevailing wage jobs for this community. That's what I'm speaking of in this $10 million that monies are going to be utilized from the city. So we're backing this pretty much.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Morrison, can you tell us how much is actually for construction? Because they were wrapping in some other obligations. So what's the actual building?
I'll defer to Brian on that. My involvement was for the entire deal as a whole. So Brian, are you able to elaborate on how much is refunding and how much is going to building construction?
It's about 50-50. It's about $5 million for refinancing and $5 million for the new project.
Thank you.
Through the mayor. Just want to go back and emphasize a little bit of what Councilwoman Espandola was talking about. We ask that they take a good look at us for local labor and such, because we want to get our economy going. But that burden also really relies on our local businesses. So I would encourage them to bid on the project, because kind of putting a constraint on something that isn't a city project. We're just a conduit. We're not backing anything. We're not putting up any money. Ampla is going to do what Ampla needs to do as as a company, and they're going to look and try to get the best deals and build it in the most efficient way they can. I know they're a good partner with the community, and I would ask them to please take a look, but that's something that we can't put a constraint on them, but we can ask our local contractors to take a look at AMPLA and apply for the jobs, because I know that there's jobs that goes on around that they don't get any local bids, even here at the city. There's things we do that we won't even get local bids on. And so it's a two-way street, and I just appreciate AMPLA investing $5 more million into our city. So thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Any other comment?
Through the mayor, I just want to finally say that this is, again, I am very close with a lot of the AMPLA board members and know Ben, the CEO, really well. And I know that they do so much good for the community. And this, again, not wanting to make it challenging for them, but just want to emphasize how important it is to have local jobs, local hire, local companies, skilled labor, and prevailing wage. Those are important.
All right, thank you. I think we've come to the point where we can get a motion. Let's see, we want to approve the TEFRA. Go ahead, I'm sorry, you're probably just going to say all that. Go ahead.
So I'll make a motion for conduct, go ahead to conduct public hearing.
Already did that?
Already did, I'm sorry, to approve the attached TEPRA resolution in which the city has proposed to enter into an installment sale agreement with AMPLA Health as a seller, and C, approve the attached city resolution authorizing the form and execute the certain documents in connection with installment sale financing and refinancing of the health facilities for AMPLA Health, and direct certain actions 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
All right, first and second to approve staff recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Thank you very much, Spencer. Appreciate it. Are we able to back up, Diana? Or I don't know if we're moving on to 7 or not.
So let's check.
Oh,
Brenda,
okay.
are you on the phone this time?
All right, so we'll go on to 7, if that's what the...
Cynthia Roderick is saying that she's muted by the organizer.
I think that might be us.
I think she's trying to connect versus via the computer.
That's what.
And they can't connect via the computer. They need to call the conference call line that was provided. And I texted that number to Brenda. And so she should have that number.
And I've put that back to them too on the computer.
All right, well, absent their presence, let's move on to number 7.
Okay.
If we have to postpone the next meeting, so be it.
Oh, Diana, we are on the conference call line, Cynthia Roderick.
So try hitting *6 to see if that unmutes.
Yeah, number 7.
Okay. All right, so the item number 7 is related to the Yuba City Residential Streetlight Maintenance District, which is the Walton and Tierra Buena area. So the city annually levies and collects special assessments to maintain lighting improvements. So these are poles that are owned by PG&E, and so the assessments collected through this strictly pay for the PG&E bills to operate the lights. The district was formed under county jurisdiction, and when the city annexed these jurisdictions, they transferred to the city. And then these districts were historically charged the maximum levy prior to 2009 to allow the reserves to build up. The engineer's annual report has been prepared. The resolution approving the annual report and intention to order improvements are required to continue the districts. The public hearing is scheduled for August 18th or August 21st at 6 p.m. And looking at the fiscal impact, you can see the Tierra Buena area. The revenues are $22,000, expenditures are $25,627. However, there's significant reserve fund balance projected as of July 1st of 2021. And so there's sufficient reserves to continue to offset the difference between the revenues and expenditures. In regard to Walton area, the revenues are $81,678, expenditures $80,676. There's a negative fund balance. We're questioning what's happening within the Walton district. And so our finance department is working with PG&E to do an audit of both accounts. Neither of these districts have cost of living adjustments. They were set at a certain rate when they were formed, and they've stayed at that rate. But we do believe that there's something going on with the Walton area district that we need to further investigate. So for now, we're recommending that we proceed forward with assessing the max levy for the Walton area as we continue to evaluate it this next year. As alternatives, council may direct the modification of the assessment amounts, which will affect future revenue and expenditures, or council may direct staff to initiate a Proposition 218 process, which would be required to modify the rates or put into their a cost of living adjustment. So the recommendation is to adopt the resolution describing improvements and ordering the engineer of work to file a report, and then the resolution approving the engineer's report and declaring intention to levy, and then also set a public hearing for August 18th at 6 p.m. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Nothing from up here. Any public comment?
None received.
All right, we can move on to action.
I move to adopt the following resolutions to continue the residential street lighting maintenance districts pursuant to the Benefits Assessment Act of 1982, point bullets 1, 2, and B.
Second.
First and second to approve staff's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Unanimous pass. Shall we give Brendan another shot?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
yay! We can hear you, Brenda.
Yay! Awesome. Thanks so much. I don't know what the problem was. It said the moderator had me muted and could not be unmuted. So good evening, Mayor Harris and City Council. Appreciate your time tonight. We are bringing before you the annual Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the region. The difference for this year is it actually is a 5-year update. Annually, we bring you, small pieces of an update, but this year we have a whole new rebuild. We want to thank Ben Moody for his participation in the planning and the community as a whole. If there are any questions with regard to the strategy, I am here to answer those. I believe Cynthia Roderick may or may not be able to access the call as well. She's been texting me saying she couldn't get in either, but we are happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
All right, were you planning on presenting anything or just get questions after we reviewed it on our own already?
All that we are asking for tonight is a resolution for acceptance so that it can be submitted to EDA for final approval.
Yeah, we all kind of thought we were going to get a presentation from you.
No, we're just here with the asking for a resolution for acceptance at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, we can't really accept anything that we haven't formally received. I mean, we have a copy of it. We've gone through it with anticipation of having a presentation. So we're going to have to postpone until we can make that happen. If you all are generally in concurrence with that.
Yeah, I never read it.
Okay.
I never read it either. I was waiting for the presentation.
I've gone through it, but I haven't studied it.
Yeah, I read it, so
Yeah, we were kind of, were you here for Barry's presentation? Were you there?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, something similar to that is what we had anticipated, unfortunately, Brenda. So we're going to have to give it another go next time.
No problem. We will
Okay.
come back at your next available opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Diana. So we'll go on to number 8, and you're already up here. And we have one recusal, I believe.
We do.
Through the mayor, I live in the area, so I will be recusing myself.
We'll get you.
So as the last district was a streetlight district, this district is strictly a landscape maintenance district, so it's District 1. It's broken up into 1A, which is the Stabler Lane area. So here's Stabler Lane, West Onset Frontage Road, Jamie Drive. So it gives you an idea of that location. And then Garden Highway area, you have Garden Highway right here, Bogue Road, Shanghai Bend Road. So it's basically paying for the landscaping improvements along Garden Highway. So again, the city annually levies and collects assessments for this district. District 1, zones of benefit A and B do not have provisions for a cost of living adjustment. And so historically, we've always charged the maximum for both of these districts. Zone of benefit B1 was recently formed and does include a cost of living adjustment. So again, the engineer's annual report has been prepared. In previous years, expenditures have exceeded the revenues. And so the city addressed the negative fund balance by cutting costs and using general fund supplemental funds to supplement the account. And then this year, what we're proposing to do is actually reduce the amount of maintenance. So in the amount that's being budgeted for District 1B in the Garden Highway area, that is going to provide for about 7 months worth of maintenance. And so there'll be a period of time where it's really just supplemented, just really on a almost emergency as needed basis to be able to address that. There are some reserve funds in 1B based upon a previous allocation from the general fund. If we need to do some supplemental maintenance, we would pull from that account. So we just want to, as staff, we want to point this out to council so the reduction in services will be noticeable. It's unlikely that the city will be able to maintain acceptable levels of maintenance in the future. And again, we're mainly talking about District 1B, that Garden Highway area. In 2008, as we had this similar issue, we attempted to do a Proposition 218 process to get the property owners to approve a cost of living adjustment. That failed. They voted not to do that. And so without rate increases, maintenance costs will continue to exceed revenues, resulting in either lower maintenance to the area, or the council will need to provide direction related to supplementing the account. So District 1A, revenues of $22,007, expenditures of $20,472, with basically zero fund balance. So that district's barely collecting enough revenues to maintain the level of maintenance. 1B, this again includes that 1B1, but revenues of $65,937, expenditures of $62,676. Here's that fund balance that had been provided previously last year that went unspent, but so we would be able to utilize that if necessary to supplement the maintenance costs. But again, just want to reiterate, the level of maintenance is not going to be the same as it's been in the past. We will get a lot of complaints about this. Council will likely get complaints about this. In order to address this, the options are really to go back to the property owners to go through a 218 process to continue or consider raising the rates, or to supplement the zone with additional funds from either general fund or streets and roads fund. So again, talked about these alternatives. And I just want to note out number 3. So council may direct other funding sources to supplement the district revenues. Over the last 5 fiscal years, the average expenditure dollar amount as zone of benefit B was approximately $100,000, with revenues being approximately $65,000. So there's a significant gap there.
And that's 1 year?
Yes.
All right.
So the recommendation is to adopt the resolution describing improvements and ordering the engineer of work to file the report, resolution approving the engineer's report, and then a resolution of intention to order improvements, and then set a public hearing for August 18th at 6 p.m. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? All right. Diana, is there a community member or a couple community members who might live in that area who are aware of the impact to their service level based on the not raising the rates? Any idea?
Not that I'm aware. I mean, 2008, that's a long time ago when we attempted to do that. And I have to say that, This contract is administered through Parks, and the maintenance contractor's done a good job in terms of doing the maintenance. And in previous years, council has supplemented the district with additional funds. Just recognizing, based upon the fiscal situation that we're currently in, it's difficult to come before you and request an additional $35,000 of general fund to supplement this district. So, which is the reason why staff was looking at just reducing the maintenance within that area, but just recognizing that we will get complaints associated with that, and we might need to revisit that at some point during.
Right, it has been 12 years. And do we have any idea, $35,000 gap, any idea what the increase would be per household?
No, I don't.
No idea? Okay. I would ask if we're going to move forward, or little, very little. I think 35 divided by, I don't know, several 100 homes. If in the interest of moving forward, I would like to ask that we put a little more effort into advertise the public hearing for those folks to come forward and, let them know what they're looking at. They might not even have a clue, because it has been 12 years. So we can maybe have a dialogue with them at that point. Anybody else have any other ideas? Get the word out for folks.
Sounds good.
We probably advertise it anyway, but maybe a little bit more extra so we can, hear what they have to say. I mean, if it's going to be next to nothing, I'm thinking probably not even $20. Yeah. So, a year. $2? Yeah. Okay. It's still a $218 deal though. Yeah.
I have Kevin texting me, Kevin Bradford. Thank goodness for technology.
Yes, when it works.
The district is currently at $29.50 per assessment. It would go to $50 per year.
Ooh.
Yes.
A little more than 20 even. Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my guess. Okay, so it's quite a bit more. All the more reason to get the word out for folks, because they will get complaints, and if they don't know it's coming, legitimate complaints, and which of course translates to staff time and whatnot. Grace, you have a comment?
Through the mayor, yeah, I agree with you with the public notification. I think that the public hearings in any subject matter that my experience in the last year and a half, I know we follow the protocol. We do due diligence. I'm confident of that, of our staff doing that, and I appreciate that. I have also brought up those concerns with other items where we need to have a stronger way to connect to the community so they have an opportunity to let us know, in particular where their own cost may double, and I think that's even more reason to make that effort. We do have the emails that are sent out, right, that we have that newsletter that most people, if they're signed up, they get that newsletter. I read it, but then again, on the council, you want to keep up on all these things, but if there's a better way to do this. We even have the texting services because we use that during right, some of the COVID time earlier for businesses. I think that we can make an effort. Can't we just target a specific area and send out information directly to them based on some of that technology that we have? Right? So I would suggest some of those things. Thank you.
No, I just kind of thinking long-term here. I mean, we're really going to be looking at outreach now, but we're really going to have to revisit this October, December, January, after we know what the physical impact is to our budget. I agree, they need to know, but we can't even figure out what we're going to transfer or not until we get further down this.
Ideally, we wouldn't transfer anything, right? We just kind of bring them up to make it whole. We haven't had a rate increase in a while, and kind of what they're designed for. But yeah, so that would be our comment on that. What are we trying to do here?
And also that part of the community, it's all shrubs and trees.
There's a lot of work.
Yeah, so that takes a lot of work to maintain those.
Okay.
Who's our contractor for that particular?
Landscapes by Stencil.
Oh, Stencil, okay. So I get to see them all working a lot.
All right, so we can still do staff's recommendation under item number A, and then we've had some feedback for you all for item number B. And do we have public comment?
Yes, we do. Thomas Burns. I travel that area all the time, and the company doing the job is doing a good job. They're always on it. And his second comment said, I am willing to pay a little extra, but you did not expect to hear that from me. And then Karen Hess made a comment, just if you own property but rent it out, how do you vote? But then she said, sorry, on the question of voting. So
She's more than welcome to come as a property owner. Anybody can come. So that would be, what's the date on this one? August 18th at 6 p.m. Okay. Do we have any action?
Through the mayor.
Yep.
Staff's recommendation, adopt the following resolutions to continue the maintenance district, pursue the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972 through 3 categories, and B.
Second.
All right, we have a first and second to approve. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye, and opposed? None. All right. Can Manny or Grace please go get Mark? Or, yeah, whomever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And it looks like I've got to step out on this one. Dave and I both do, so we'll have Mark step in when he gets here. All right.
Oh.
Oh, it's 3 of us? You're it, Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, you are. Yes, they have to go. You're really in.
You're
Wow. My second official duty. So we're on item 9. Stand by.
All right, so item 9 covers the lighting and landscape maintenance districts 2 through 6, so it includes streetlights and landscaping. And District 2 is the town square area. Districts 3, 4, and 5 are residential districts, and then District 6 is a commercial district. So again, this is an annual process. The assessments were approved by the property owners. All of these districts have cost of living adjustments that are based upon the consumer price index from January to January. The engineer's annual report has been prepared. Districts 2, 3, 5, and 6 will see increases in their annual levies, while District 4 will see a decrease. There's quite a bit of reserves in District 4, so we're recommending to reduce the assessments. Assessments for Districts 2, 3, 5, and 6 were raised in response to inflation. And then in terms of the fiscal impact, you can see that District 2, revenues of $79,826, expenditures of just under $77,000, with a very minimal reserve. This is a little bit concerning, as the town center area does have a significant amount of landscaping and lighting, so this is one we definitely need to watch into the future. District 3, revenues of $11,500, expenditures of $10,621, modest amount of reserves. District 4, revenues of $142,835, expenditures of $125,219, with again a reserve of $146,302. And then District 5, which is our biggest district. I can't talk tonight, my goodness. Been standing up here too long. Our biggest district in terms of residential subdivisions. So the revenues are $510,553, pretty much matching the expenditures, and then a projected fund balance of $285,000. And then District 6, which is the commercial district, revenues of $26,793, expenditures of $20,000 with reserve fund balance of $123,000. So it's important to note that that reserve fund balance is a combination of capital replacement reserve as well as operating reserve. So alternatives is that council may direct the modification of the assessment amounts, which will affect future revenues and expenditures. And the recommendation is to adopt 3 resolutions. So the resolution describing improvements and ordering the engineer of work to file a report, the resolution approving the engineer's reports, and then a resolution of intention to order improvements. And again, we have a public hearing set for August 18th at 6 p.m. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council? Anything from the public?
Not that we've received yet.
Okay, through the Vice Mayor. Item 9, Yuba City Lighting and Landscaping Maintenance Districts 2, 3, 4, and 5. Staff's recommendations A and B.
Oh, I second.
Have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None noted?
No.
I think Shannon wants me to say item 9 passed. There you go, Shannon.
Just cost me some money. Return the favor. All right. May as well. All right, so that was, that's 8, this is 9. Now we're on number 10. Ben's already up there. This is good stuff right now. Housing element.
All right. So good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the item before you is in regards to updating the city's general plan, updating and awarding a professional service contract to perform that work. And so a little background information. The city received an SB2 planning grant in the amount of $310,000 earlier this year for advanced planning services to aid the development of housing in California. So basically SB2, a portion of that, when that bill passed, the governor has used that to help streamline any sort of planning activities that basically help streamline the development of housing in California with the housing crisis before the COVID-19 crisis. So the city is required, additionally, the city is required to update the city's general plan housing element. So depending on where you're at with the state, there's a requirement for an 8-year update. And so with that, they establish a regional needs housing, so RENA number, basically on what our housing allotment should be for affordable housing. And so SACOG recently passed that for our region. And then so with that, we need to implement that with a new housing element update that's due next June 2021. So the City Council has, additionally, the City Council has identified a need to update the city's 2004 general plan to aid economic development through providing clear policies that reflect current standards and community needs. So the general plan update, the current general plan at minimum needs a technical review and update to reflect changes in state laws that have occurred since 2004. There's a need for a comprehensive update as discussed for the housing element to comply with current regional housing needs allocation requirements. And with that update to the housing, we'll also need to update the land use plan to reflect those higher density and where those residential units will go with the land use. Additionally, there's a need for the transportation circulation element of the general plan. With recent work the public works staff has done with Fear and Peers and directed by council to update our traffic model and then also reflect new state requirements for CEQA for VMT analysis. With this update, we want to bring that into the general plan and reflect those changes. And then through that, there needs to be a CEQA document and basically to reflect those changes that analyzes it and publicly notices those proposed changes. So consultant scope, we've reached out to a company named PlaceWorks. They provided us a scope to update the general plan to address state law changes, update the city's housing land use elements, update the zoning code to reflect those land use changes, update the transportation element as we discussed, and the CEQA document. So why PlaceWorks? So PlaceWorks, we have a little bit of history with PlaceWorks and also with HCD, with the housing department. PlaceWorks was basically contracted by the housing department to help review and implement the SB2 funding. So they're very knowledgeable and understand the scope of what the SB2 grant will pay for. And then additionally, the consultants that work for PlaceWorks, Jenny and as Mark Teague, they were also involved with our 2013 update. And so they have, they're real familiar with the city's housing update and familiar with the funding source and the scope. And so we reached out to them with a tight timeline to get this done and implemented before next year. And so with that, there's some bullet points there, just understand the complexity of the scope, understand the work that needs to comply with SB2 grant funding. They're available to meet the city's timeline, and they provide a proposal that is fair and reasonable in cost. Staff recommends council make that finding that it's in the best interest of the city to move forward with PlaceWorks in lieu of a request for proposals. PlaceWorks funding. And so the contract proposal is for $300,000. We expect a contingency. We put a contingency amount in there. I shouldn't say we expect it, but there's a lot of unknown with the CEQA analysis as far as depending on what type of findings or what type of responses come through based on that. And then so there's some contingency in there. And so we're looking at a contract amount with the contingency for $330,000 with expectations that we're trying to utilize the maximum amount of the SB2 funding, so we're not leaving any of that on the table. But also, we want to prioritize the use of the grant funds and maximize that out. But also bring in that additional scope for the transportation element, to leverage those grant funds and meet the needs of the city. The proposed. The funding, we're proposing to fund it through CIP account 1080. So there's an existing CIP account that's been routinely funded with a little bit of money every year. I have to build up an account for an update. And so in that account for fiscal year 2021, we programmed the $310,000 because we knew the grant was coming in. And then there's an existing fund balance in there of approximately $650,000. So with that, the recommendation is to adopt a resolution awarding the professional service agreement to PlaceWorks for planning services related to updating the city's general plan and housing element in the amount of $300,000 with finding that's in the best interest of the city, and authorize the city manager to execute the professional service agreement on behalf of the city in substantial compliance with the material terms and conditions presented in the attached draft agreement, subject to review and approval as the legal form by the city attorney. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions right now, Ben?
No, sir.
All right. Public comment?
None received.
None received. All right. So we can come back for a motion.
Through the mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt a resolution awarding a professional services agreement to PlaceWorks for planning services related to updating the city's general plan and housing element in the amount of $300,000 with the finding that it is in the best interest of the city. And also item B, authorize the city manager to execute the professional services agreement on behalf of the city in a substantial compliance with the material terms and conditions presented in the attached draft agreement, subject to review and approval as to legal form by the city attorney.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Unanimous. Thank you very much, Ben. And you're here for number 11 as well, authorizing submittal of an application for permanent local housing allocation funds.
All right, so this is an exciting revenue source that's come through recently, also with this SB2 funding, part of this bill. They've, through the state, what they've done is created another fee. And so, but with that fee, they've prioritized it for permanent housing and for homelessness. And so through the transaction of refinances and county fixture, basically recording, when they record documents at the recorder's office, they're charging them a $75 fee up to $225 per transaction. And so with that fee, it's provided a funding source for housing. And so what the state has done is they've set it up where they want to plan for 5 years and they're going to give you single-year allotments. And it's formula-based to match the CDBG entitlement city process. And so they've worked it out that per this $195 million that they're expecting to bring in, they're going to break it out. And so with that, basically the city's first year allocation is $311,000. Back up a little bit here. The purpose tonight with the staff report before you is to obtain state grant funds to further the city's efforts to provide affordable housing and assist with homelessness. And so the items that are for consideration are, in layman terms, authorize Development Services Director, myself, to submit an application for these grant funds, have council provide input on how we want to spend these funds on eligible items, and approve that funding plan, and then authorize the finance director to receive that allocation and able to spend it. So those are basically the three goals with this item tonight. And so I'm really looking for council direction on how we want to allocate this this funding source for the year with this plan, and then also for 5 years is how we do it. And so HCD has allocated $311,140 to Yuba City for fiscal year 2021. So that's what's been collected for that year. It's sitting in a reserve account waiting for the city to draw it. The city is projected to receive approximately $1.9 million over a 5-year period. And the city can utilize up to 5% of its annual allocation for administrative costs. So, so with this, we'll be looking for $311,000. I believe the administration cost, if we hold that in our reserves and take that off the top, is around $15,000. And that really is what I would say would be nice to keep at a certain level to handle the reporting requirements, the planning, and just the fund management of that for staff time. And so the numbers don't exactly add up, 311,000 times 5. That was a projected based on what the state gave as a projection. And obviously, I think it's probably not going to meet expectations with COVID-19 occurring. And so right now I know I have 311,000 in the bank. I don't know if at the end of 5 years we're actually going to be at 1.9 plus, it's going to be plus or minus. And so we're playing with about $300,000 a year is what the estimate is. So through this, they want us to set up a 5-year plan where we basically submit an application that says a certain dollar amount or a certain percentage of that revenue goes to eligible activities. And the summary of those activities, there's 10, is there 10 or 6? I'm looking at Jaspreet, who is really into the weeds with this, but they're really specific. And if you look at these items 1 through 10, there's really about 2 or 3 that are doable. With the first one being the pre-development, development, acquisition, rehabilitation, preservation of multifamily residential live work rental housing that is affordable to extremely low, very low, moderate income households. And so so I need to submit a plan by the end of the month that basically directs how we're going to spend this money. And then with that, I have through the year, I could adjust that up to 10% for each of the items, or annually I could amend the plan substantially. If all of a sudden we want to put 100% in one bucket, and then next year we want to move it to a different bucket, we'd have to do that with an annual update. And so those on that green slide, those were long-winded descriptions that basically have these bullet point items. So eligible activities increase. So the items are: increase the supply of housing for households at or below 60% area median income, increase assistance to affordable owner-occupied workforce housing, assist persons experiencing or at risk of homelessness, facilitate housing affordability, particularly for low and moderate income households, promote projects and programs to meet the local government's unmet share of regional housing needs allocation, ensure geographic equity in the distribution of the funds. And so through the staff report, we know there's a lot of competing interests with homelessness and with housing. And we've heard from different different partners, including the Regional Housing Authority and the Yuba City Homeless Consortium, just on looking for, as they try to leverage their needs, they're looking for opportunities to fund. And then there's also city needs, direct city needs, where if the city has a particular project that they want to work on that meets this. And so to start the discussion, what I've done here and through the staff report on the plan is $311,000. I've taken the 5% off the top. That leaves you $295, and then I've got it proposed right now at a 50% split, and then I've shown that number to kind of give you the number of what that means if we wanted to direct a certain amount to the county for improvements on 2nd Street or for homelessness to the consortium, or if we want to add it to a permanent housing project that the Housing Authority is working towards, that represents the city. And so also to add to that, the Executive Director, Gus Becerra, with the Regional Housing Authority has put in a comment, and just to bring up and highlight one of the projects that he has in the works, that if to make sure all of the council know about one of the projects they have that is working through the process right now. And so I guess with that, I will, the few projects that I'm aware of is there's some interest in the county for partnership with homelessness. There's the Homeless Consortium has reached out to us to bring an item forward to council for consideration of support funding the executive director's position. And then the Regional Housing Authority, who serves as the city's partner in really helping us achieve affordable housing through permanent housing. They're really how the city with a pass-through is what we use to help meet some of the housing goals that we have for the various CDBG and different housing programs we have. And so they're all happy to spend the money of what's available or for what their project, what we prioritize. And so I'll read Mr. Becerra's email that came through with a specific request. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. As you prepare your plan for the PLHA funding from the state for the next 5 years, I would like to introduce to you a new project planned in Yuba City. The Regional Housing Authority is in the early pre-development and planning phase for a new affordable housing project to be named Richland Village. Located at 470 Bernard Drive, we have a meeting next week with Mr. Ben Moody to review our architect's initial site plan design. Richland Village will consist of approximately 100 to 150 units with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units targeting the Yuba City's workforce with incomes at or below 60% of the AMI area median income. A financial pro forma for the project is still not ready, as we need to finalize the site plan design in order to get an accurate unit count. A first draft of the financial pro forma should be available in late August. We are anticipating financing the project using the following funding sources: state HCD, HSCD funds, Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Cap and Trade Program. Application is due in February 2021. 4% low income housing tax credits, tax exempt housing bonds, city PLHA funding, if council approves, city low mod funds if available and if the council approves. When we complete the financial pro forma, we will provide to city staff the exact amounts being requested to the city for your consideration. A unique aspect of the project will be the coordination and partnership with Yuba City Transit, as HCD competitively scores the AHSC application with how the public transit component is incorporated. We're meeting with them next week to coordinate our application and look at the possibility of AHSC financing the housing project while also financing electric buses and the construction of a transit facility with charging stations at different locations, though not at the housing site. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have or meet with you individually, albeit socially distanced. And Gus is on the line via chat if there are specific questions at the end. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and then work through how we would like to prioritize this, if keep it at this level or shift it around. I think an easy way is probably on a percentage basis on which items are a priority, and I'll take note.
Yeah, through the mayor. So you're asking, it sounds like, Benny, you're asking us for some specific direction tonight.
Yeah, I mean, for tonight, I'd really like to have, with the due date being the 27th of June, so pretty much next week. July. Time flies. That if the council has a project out there that's $250,000 for homelessness or $200,000 or some sort of idea, that I could put that in the percentage for submittal. So I get an 80-20, 100, 0, 90, 10 for housing versus homelessness. That would get the application submitted, the money coming in this year. It'd get us rolling, and then we could amend as necessary.
So is there, I know Mr. Becerra's put forth a project. Were there any other entities besides the Homeless Consortium and their desire to have us pay for a CEO? Is there anything else pending out there?
I did not, I want to help, that's great input. With this funding source, it was new and the deadline was tight, and so there has not been an outreach by the city to request for allocation. Gus and Regional Housing is definitely tracking it on their side, and they knew of the funding source. And the Homeless Consortium, one of their consultants, it was aware of the source coming through, and so there was specific requests from them, but there wasn't. The city didn't broadcast out regarding any specific requests at this time. And so, one more thing on the funding. With Richland Village for Gus, with this funding source, you're able to leverage it 5 years. And so if he needs, or the city needs, or whatever our priority is, I could ask for 5 years up front if that helps with the deal. It's a little bit dicey when they tell you 1.8's anticipated, and you don't quite know if that's going to fully be obtained. But there is a process in the guidelines for the money that you could request 5 years up front.
Okay. I guess, given the time crunch, I'm personally more interested in actual projects rather than funding staff. So, Mr. Becerra's project, partnering with the county for whatever homeless project they might have. I'm also, I would like to retain at least some input into these projects rather than just hand over money that we take in. So when it comes to over-engineering, over-designing, and those types of things, do we have that ability, or is it just strictly this group comes to us, wants some of our money, and we give it to them, or do we retain any kind of input or feedback into that project?
So right now, the plan would just designate it into buckets, and then the city would retain control on how we allot that bucket. And we would have to follow up with an individual breakout unless there was direction tonight on that. But I'm anticipating putting it into these buckets and then coming back to council regarding how to allocate that individual bucket. And so with the regional housing, it's with housing period, with this goal up top, this number one is the eligible activity. The funding could be put in there for the year, or we could actually request all 5 years put into that. So you basically have 1.8 sitting there. And it sounds like we have some flexibility on the time to deliver that, to spend it. They will have to do reporting and updates, but we've talked with the staff writer, our grant writer, and then who's real familiar with the funding source, and then with the state, that you have to do, but that is an option. You could put all the money in housing, and you could technically sit on it until Richland Housing possibly has a project that's ready to go, or the city could put it into that bucket and we could piecemeal it out.
Okay, I guess I do think there's a need in both areas. I don't know necessarily how you allocate at this point, not knowing only one project that's been up there and others that we know are out there. But again, my point would be is I'd much rather see projects rather than staff.
I think maybe right now, maybe we're kind of at a higher level right now. We can decide what percentage we would like to go to our homeless, what percentage for housing. And with the third category, fine. But then we can, when that gives you some direction as to how much you're able to spend, and when the project's more specific, then we can go ahead and have our say-so. Is that the way it's supposed to work? But
So it'd be nice to get it close. If there's a project that I'm unaware of, right now, I split it. I split it at 50-50. And then if you have a project tomorrow at 200,000, let's bump it up and change it here to put that money in the bucket. But if we do it 50-50 now, that puts us in the queue. We get the money coming through, and then we adjust the plan as the projects come in.
Through the mayor. Were you going to ask another?
Yeah, just real quick.
Go ahead.
Do we have, regarding the funding staff for the CEO of the consortium?
So the request is for $12,500, and there's been a communication that we're planning to bring to council for a review and consideration for the timeline.
So they want us to kick in 12.5?
12,500.
12.5. Okay, thank you. And then what is the total compensation? I just want to make sure the request and the ask is, proportional to the benefit.
I don't have those numbers. I believe they were short.
Would you like me to answer that? I do know the answer to that, Mayor. It is $55,000 for the salary of the new CEO. So
a little less than a quarter.
Yes, and multi-jurisdictions were all contributing to this particular new. It's a new position.
The traditional source of funding is that jurisdictions contribute?
Yes, multiple jurisdictions are contributing.
And Ben, that is above and beyond the admin you have shaved off up there.
Correct. That 5% admin shaved off is for city staff. And that can be redirected also. My recommendation is 15,000 for staff time.
Sure.
It gets eaten up pretty fast.
Yeah, it does.
Also, the mayor, on that 12.5, that was discussed over a year ago with the JPA, homeless JPA, with the cities and the counties when they went to go out for this position for the executive director.
All right.
Through the mayor, what happened is that also because of COVID-19, that got stalled, and it was actually working through the process of that, what Councilman Cardoso was mentioning.
All right. Were you aware of that, sir?
My comment stands.
It's your comment stands. Okay, so I think it's important, this is my personal opinion too, that if we're going to contribute, we're going to have the homeless consortium, we need to pay somebody to run it. And if we're going to divide it up and we need to pay our fair share, we should take about 6,000 off of each of those half categories rather than have the benefit of our community being, having received help with homelessness and the housing, but not contributing to the staff. I think it's important. Staff costs money, my opinion only. Now, Ben, does the 50%, is that your recommendation? Are you okay if you walked away with that today? Or are you looking for us to say, hey, you need to fund?
Without any specific projects in the queue, I'm okay with this today because it gets us moving forward. The regional housing definitely has an interesting project, but as stated, we're still looking for the pro forma. There's still a lot of unknowns with the leveraging and obtaining the grant, and then the timeline that does put this, it does leave it a little bit fuzzy for a funding source that we need to take in and get off the books. And so that's where Gus is kind of working with his team to put that together and be able to put a presentation before us. I do not have a specific need for homelessness at this time besides that 12,500. So 150,000 is quite a bit more than that for the request that comes in. But I know that there's been some internal discussion, or there might be higher level discussions going on needs, and with homelessness being a big deal.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know what other projects might be floating around out there too, and then what Gus's specific ask is. But kudos to him for monitoring everything. That's for sure. He's doing his job. Appreciate that. And we would like to be helpful and assist. I mean, that's what the money's supposed to be for anyway. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Anybody else? Have any further comments or anything? I'm sorry. Were you done?
Thanks, Councilman Shaw. My question, I think you kind of answered it a little bit, Ben. I wasn't clear with the Housing Authority if they had already developed a budget for the actual development of this village, Richland Village project that they're proposing to us? Do we know the entire cost of that?
I do not.
There's no cost at this time, Grace. It's still in the stages.
It's the development stage. Okay, so
That's what they're going to bring to Ben here, like he was saying. That's what we're going to be bringing to Ben.
I know they're working hard because they're working on some timelines for the application, and a little bit I understand of it from the preliminary discussions. It's they're trying to make it as dense as possible in order to qualify for this money, and the higher the density, the higher the cost, right, with multi-stories and the number of units. And so it was a big number, and it was a convoluted funding source, similar to New Haven, as you saw in the Richland, where there's a lot of convoluted funding sources going on in order to make it happen. And so that's where a lot of time is being spent to try to package that together to see how it works.
So then that ties into, because this is a 5-year funding period, if let's say Richland Housing is not able to secure the project within that 5-year period, are we at risk of losing those funds?
There definitely would have to be a discussion where I'd be getting nervous year 3, year 4. If that funding's not in there, I have to figure out a way to get it spent.
And so with the homeless consortium, we are also tracking all this funding because there's quite a bit of monies that are coming in. So I think what I would suggest to the council is that, we're going to be putting together this regrouping, this ad hoc homeless. There's possibilities with Sutter County. There's other options, but I think that if you put them in 2 categories, as you're suggesting, there's always the option of amendment, which is not a favorable one, but we could always amend. I love supporting permanent housing. It's needed. I'm just not clear with all the details to the Richland Village at this point, and the development of that, to put the monies aside. I'm very familiar with these funds, so I hope not to risk other projects not being funded because we set aside the monies and they're not ready for us. Richland Housing.
I think that makes complete sense. And I think, Ben, you were okay with 50% for housing in general, correct? And then 50% for homelessness. We
Correct.
don't have to dedicate to the project.
So half of it right now, the way it's written, is that 50% of that available money, so $150,000, would go to housing. And it's dedicated in that bucket, and that bucket is general enough that it could be for the rehab of existing facilities, small one-apartment approval, or it could go towards ultimate Richland Village project.
Okay, that clarifies more. Thank you. And I'm going to finish this one, Councilman Shasta, then give it to you. I do support with the homeless consortium because it's not just a staffing that is being hired. It's managing the projects of about 14, 15 other nonprofits that are under the homeless consortium. And as a matter of fact, Richland Housing also receives monies through the consortium that comes from multiple other sources. So if you like, after we put these monies aside, we can have presentations from Richland Housing and the Homeless Consortium. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, through the mayor. A question for Mr. Becerra, and he can answer while we're continuing on, but what is the projected timeline that they're hoping to get Richland Village off the ground? And I know it's a guess, but I'm just curious, is it a 3-year timeline, a 5-year timeline? And while he's responding on that question, I go back to what the vice mayor said earlier. I'm more about real projects and getting things done. And I know I've been kind of critical at times of the regional housing in the past because looking at how things have been spent. But kudos to Mr. Becerra for bringing this because this is exactly the type of project I can get behind because it's not repairing an existing building that, we've been down that avenue before, but this is actually giving us 100 new units. This is actually doing something to have affordable housing to get those numbers. So I like the project. And, as far as hiring admin, CEOs, bureaucracy, as I call it, that really needs to come out of some kind of, we've got all the different monies coming around, so I would not want to take special allocations like this to fund a CEO. It really needs to go to what it's intended for, which is direct results. And one of the biggest problems we have right now in our area is Sutter County is trying to find a place for the homeless so they can park their motor homes, so they can have their tent cities, things of that nature. And I know that's a problem for our sheriff and our chief of police and all the men and women that serve under them. So we could do this, and help me, Mr. Moody, if I'm just thinking long-term here. If Sutter County was to come up with a project and need that, we could accelerate either halves of these to get 5 years of funding in, correct? To be a part of securing a location to have homeless population housed. Is that correct?
Yes, we would amend the plan, and then amend the plan for what that dollar amount is, and then advance that portion of the funding.
Okay.
And so there'd be some coordination with the state in a review period, but that sounds like it's the flexibility of the funding source.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very, very high level at this, but the point being is, we've got these funds, they're for 5 years. I really want to see action out of it. And if we can spend a little over $1 million and get people actually off the street, even though 12,000 is a little amount, that's probably one more person that we can get off the street. Other communities have gone in, and when I'm thinking out loud and, projects, they've had older hotels that were kind of not prosperous, and they bought those and they've converted those to housing. So there's a bunch of opportunities, and I know that we're kind of like, we've got this and only a few people know about it, and I don't want us to be whoever runs first gets it. We really need to think it through. But if we have that flexibility, I just want to see it actually be done to something that, where the rubber meets the road. It's projects. It's actually getting people off the street. And I think, Ms. Buckland, you've got the answer.
I do. Gus has a point of clarification for you, Councilmember Shaw. Mm-hmm. The Richland Village project target population is workforce housing, family units, not specifically targeting homelessness, although homeless can apply. And then timeline applying for the AHSC in February 2021, awards announced in June 2021, apply for tax credits in the fall of 2021, awards announced early 2022, start construction spring 2022.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Becerra. And I was clear on, I didn't mix it up. I know what it's the low mod, it's the low income, that's the housing, and that's great. We need that. That's the ratios, and that's perfect. But I want the other money trying to solve our homeless and it going right to where the rubber meets the road. So I'm fine with 50-50 as long as we can come back and talk about the underlying projects. So.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to follow up and clarify for me at least, through the time on the council, I'm certainly not an expert, but I think the housing issue and the homelessness issue we've spent a lot of time and a good time and had some excellent presentations. And what I think where my comments are coming from is what I kept hearing and do continue to hear from those folks who fashion themselves and are more knowledgeable than I on this is that one of the major problems in our community is affordable housing. And so it's sort of a chicken and an egg. The homeless sometimes become homeless because they can't afford to live in a house. And so, where are we going to put something called the permanent local housing allocation funds if it's not for permanent local housing? And again, I'm not trying to discredit the fact that there's a homelessness need, but it appears to me that the intent here is permanent local housing. That's the title of the item here. And so if we can provide local housing for folks that is affordable, then they're not in that one instance where all of a sudden incident happens within their life and now they're living in their car. or their job is eliminated because of COVID and they're living in a car. You know, we have an option for them. We have a supply of housing that they could potentially be eligible for. So my comments are, let's build some housing. That's one way to attack the homelessness problem. Again, as Councilwoman Espandola says, there's all kinds of funding mechanisms out there. And I'm not trying to take one from the other, just this is permanent local housing. And to me, that's a straight face test, is we should be really pushing towards local affordable housing. Mr. Broom talks about it, our own EDC talks about it. We have to have a place for these people to live if we're going to have a place for them to come and work. And right now, the housing stock here in Yuba City does not support that. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. That was well received. I think your comments are right on the point, with a lot of conversations about the lack of and the shortage of affordable housing. That is clearly an area that our community is needing more of. I work so intimately with the homeless community of issues and the partners that, that I think sometimes I believe that everyone knows what I already know because I do it. But I guess I need to be more clear about the relationship between the consortium and the relationship between permanent housing and this money. The efforts of building permanent housing has always been a priority of the homeless consortium. So I think that there's a common interest there within the homeless consortium in building these permanent housing. What I have seen in the last 3 to 4 years is a stronger even partnership and relationship between the Housing Authority and the consortium. What was missing for many years was the coordination of multiple services from homeless community members. And so people were going to multiple places and duplication of services. And a lot of effort has been done to put all this together, and the board members, without a lead of a person who pull all these things together, everybody's a volunteer. So there hasn't been one lead person to help with the operations of now with the consortium at several $1 million and helping in multiple areas in a bi-county region. And so this new person that is hired, I would love to have the opportunity for him to present and just to bring up to date what the consortium is doing, not necessarily to hear the thought that, oh, it's another layer of administration, another layer of unnecessary in-betweens, to help understand how this person really is working on many of those issues that you just mentioned on the permanent housing, temporary housing, transitional housing, services at the coordinated entry locations, and helping that all of these things are coordinated throughout the region. That said, one thing that we have been seeing most recent is the need for housing prevention. In addition to permanent housing and affordable housing needing, housing prevention, meaning that to try to minimize the opportunity, the factors of why people end up homeless. And so I bring that forward just to help our council understand that the complexities of homelessness are just as complex as we think about COVID-19, and to find out what is most appropriate, a little bit of all of it is. And I mentioned that I was concerned with the time frame of 5 years, because I do not want to risk ourselves to lose those funds. But if Housing Authority can do their best to get this developed and funded, I would wholeheartedly support it. But I also think that the Homeless Consortium is a clear link to all of those programs and services between government, private, and nonprofit. So with that, I make the ask to have the Yuba Sutter Homeless Consortium do a presentation in the future and introduce the executive director to the council, and hopefully answer any questions that you all might have, just to give some more clarity.
Do we have an executive director already on board?
Yes.
Yes, he just started, yes.
How is he being paid if we haven't paid our our share?
The funding's through the consortium.
Well, it was fronted through Yuba County, and then we were discussing our fees. And this was through the JPA. This was through the JPA that we've made with all our jurisdictions. We had a discussion almost 2 years ago, between a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we were each community was going to kick in a little bit to help pay for this gentleman's services.
I'm assuming that happened before we came on the council.
Yes, it did.
It's been a long discussion, Vice Mayor.
Yeah.
So before we make a recommendation, it sounds like we have a majority towards the permanent local housing. And so with that, if we bump that allotment up to a 90-10 permanent, and then there's an allowed 10% flexibility in there, that would basically allow you to flex 80 to 20 depending on what projects come forward. And so that would be, that would provide any activities towards homelessness, not just the consortium, the ability from around at the 10% level, just under 30,000 up to 60,000 while amending the plan and being pretty quick versus, and then with the housing component being at that higher dollar amount and having the flexibility to go all the way up to 100% if we really, council really chose when that performer comes through in the presentation with Gus, he has those numbers and says, hey, I could get funded if you advance me the 5 years at the 300,000, 1.5 million. And so for consideration, if that's the way that the council is leaning here with the permanent housing.
Through the mayor, I'm part of the housing authority. I've been on the board the last 4 years. I'm, all for this and stuff like that, but we have a homeless issue in our community, and especially since the COVID has hit, it has blossomed much more than it has in the last year or so, and the county is going to be coming to us asking for some help. And the county's, footing the full bill, and these folks are in our community, and we're going to need to help the county here. And I'd like to go with Councilman Shaw's recommendation for this year, because we can change it each year. And I'd like to go with the 50-50 split, because we're going to be asked here sometime in the very, very near future for some help with the county to help with this homeless situation in our community. I'm kind of going with 50-50 with Councilman Shaw.
All right, there must have been something when I was out of the room.
Nope, nothing.
I heard a 90-10 when I sat down, but that's okay. Is that a motion, sir?
No, I'm just saying I'd be happy to make
Are we ready for that?
Are we ready for a motion?
So the only item left with my presentation is the items A through C, and I could elaborate if needed.
Okay. That's administrative part. The blood and guts is what you want as your percentage.
So how B is set up right now in your package is set up as a 50-50 split. And so before we make this recommendation, if you want to change the split, then we would need to give me that direction and then approve it with that.
All right.
And then we can go back and change this again next year, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
You mean amend it, right?
Yes, amend it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion anywhere?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
To staff's recommendations to adopt a resolution authorizing development service directors to submit application in their projects utilizing the permanent local housing allocations. B, after consideration input from council regarding funding allegations, adopt a resolution approving the permanent local housing allocation funds, section 302C4 plan. And C, authorize finance director to amend fiscal year 2021 budget to receive funding and establish a CIP account 951281 for permanent local housing allocation funds in the amount of $311,140 and take any actions to allocate the funding to use an ordinance with federal and state guidelines.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for you went through all that. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do.
Sorry, Manny.
That's okay.
All right. This is from Thomas Burns. More socialism and the moneymakers keep leaving California at an escalating rate. The Bible says if a man does not work, neither should he eat. I talked to a hardworking husband and wife who are ranchers today. They are leaving California for this specific reason. They are sick of the government giveaway to those who do not want to work. What happened to self-help, earning a living on your own? Mark, I have not found too many people that want to work. A lot of people want to get paid, but working is another story. There is a shortage of people that want to work construction trades. I think you have experienced that in the business you are in also. And his last comment, I'm sick of seeing shopping carts on Market Street. Get it cleaned up. The city needs to get the carts off the street. Do something about it. Also, transients walking right in front of traffic.
All right. Any other comment?
No others.
Really? Okay. All right, so we do have a motion on the table to approve staff's recommendation, which is all three of those up there, and I think you went so far as to, did you specify the percentages as well?
What staff's recommendation was 50-50.
Okay, all right. And do we, you will?
I will second that.
All right.
With the 50/50
We go 50-50 for this year?
Yes.
for this year only.
All right, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
No.
And one no. You got the tally there?
You want to recall?
Vice Mayor, no, we're good, just making sure you clarify. Okay, good. All right, thank you, Ben. We'll see you again. And we go with item number 12. You're back up for CARES funding.
All right. When I was going to school to learn to make water flow downhill, it never had anything to do with CARES or housing, just to let you know. But I appreciate the patience.
It's all good. Doing a good job, though.
Yep.
Yeah, number 12.
Okay, so the item before you is in regards to the COVID-19 CARES Act funding expenditures. And so background, as we live through this in real time, March 4th, 2020, Governor Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency as a result of the threat of COVID-19. March 24th, 2020, City of Yuba City declared the COVID-19 outbreak a local emergency. The federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security CARES Act was approved by the federal government, and it allocated funds in the amount of $869,954 to the City of Yuba City for public health and safety responses to COVID-19. July 7th, 2020, City Council authorized the city manager to sign and submit necessary documentation to secure this funding. So total funding, $869,954, approximately $900,000 with no local match required. The funding may be specifically utilized for non-budgeted COVID-19 related expenses between March 30th and December 30th, 2020. Funding is to be received in 6 equal installments. So the federal government has given it to the state of California, and then through the state of California, funneled to the city. And so through that, they're breaking that up into 6 equal payments. And with some reporting and some guidance regarding when we need to have a reporting plan in place by September, and then in October, basically they want to see that expenditure deadline being met or have a extension if the city's not spending that money, or if we've contracted to spend that money, it's not spent yet. But the money, it's to recover any expenses that were spent during that time frame for COVID-19 related expenses. So eligible activities, staffing needs, public safety, staff payroll, telework infrastructure, part-time staff to handle COVID-19 efforts. These are just some bullet points that have come up when we go through these of what are COVID-19 related expenses that qualify. Public services, outreach efforts, community grants, loans, materials and supplies, personal protective equipment, decontamination equipment, such as foggers, and then also maybe the germ shields and their different masks and equipment that the city's purchased, and facility improvements and modifications. So anything specifically related to COVID-19. So some ideas that came through from fire department were COVID-19 decontamination buildings, where it basically provided an area where they could take off their equipment, house it, and then clean it and provide storage for that equipment. Germ shield for social distancing at public facilities. So really straightforward. So the item before you tonight is really, it's a logistical recommendation. It's an act by council that's basically going to amend the fiscal budget for that money, and then it's going to authorize the finance director to make the supplemental appropriation related transfers into the appropriate account for the CARE Act funding. With this one, again, there's this, we're getting the money without a real opportunity to how we want to prioritize it. So staff's looking if there's any certain amount of money that we want to allocate towards outreach or public services. But I want to highlight that, so with this, I want to highlight that with this money, there's $900,000. Public safety basically, it costs approximately $1.7 million every pay period. So every 2 weeks, plus or minus, we're spending $1 million plus money on fully eligible recoverable costs. And so Spencer Morrison's here. He could definitely go into the weeds as our finance director on some of the eligible costs. But with this money having a lot of strings with the timeline and the accounting on it, that there has to be audit on it, there's definitely this easily accountable reimbursement that the city can make for the expense of staff time and employees, with us spending over $1 million per pay period and only in receiving $900,000. And so, and then that would, if you brought it in through that mechanism, as the city's proposing, as staff's proposing, then we would basically fully recover all of those funds. And so with that, Mr. Morrison's here to help answer any specific questions regarding this funding source and some of the requirements, and I'd be happy to provide any answers to questions.
Any public comment on the item?
None received.
All right. Any other comments? I believe, let's see here. We're not here tonight to specify where the money is to go. Is that correct, Ben?
So with this funding source and definitely the timeline, and then with literally we just got the information that staff was fully reimbursable late last week, as far as that being a qualifying cost, that there was the item in the staff report regarding direction to approve, because originally we were looking for ways to spend the $900,000. Then late last week, it came to us that basically said, hey, your qualifying experience is to bring that all in. And so our recommendation would be to bring it all in under the COVID-19, the emergency personnel response, so that there's a clear auditing track for that. And then then later on, if council has a priority for some sort of other use, such as outreach or community grants, then they would have the flexibility through the budget, since all of that money's been recovered.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you. No public comment on the item. Comment from council? If not, we can move forward. Who would ever care to do so?
I move to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget to reflect Federal CARES Act, sections A, B, and C.
Second.
What's C? I only have an A and B.
Provide staff direction, priority allocation, and funding.
Oh.
We just did.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going by what they give me.
I'm sorry.
No
A and
worries.
B. A and B, gentlemen.
All right.
C, I threw you off. That was a joke.
Okay. Any other comments? We have a second?
Second.
All right. First and second to approve staff's recommendation, A, B, and B.
Correct.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate it. It's a nice chunk of change there. And now we're going to go into our special meeting item. That was item number 12. This will be item 12A, special meeting regarding this Plymouth Street Summer Marketplace.
And this is actually agenda item 1 for the special meeting.
I guess it would be. Okay.
Shannon will be happy that I clarified that.
What's that?
I said Shannon's happy that I clarified that. In full disclosure, he asked me to make sure I clarified that.
I'll change it.
So I'm sure he's
Not from
chuckling right now.
Not 12A.
Right.
All right.
All right, so this item is the Plymouth Street Summer Marketplace. So in early June, the DBA approached the city with this concept of a Plymouth Street Marketplace. Originally, it was to close Plymouth Street for 3 Saturdays during the summer from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. to allow businesses to expand their out onto the street. And so the dates were July 18th, which was just this last weekend, August 8th, and undecided date in September. Within a few days in July, there was a flurry of activity. So July 7th, council discussed the Plymouth Street Marketplace to basically confirm the Director of Emergency Services order to allow these businesses to expand. At that council meeting, the concept was brought forward about doing a long-term temporary closure of Plymouth Street. And in cooperation with the DBA, we requested that the DBA go back and poll the members of the DBA to see if there was a favorable direction to close Plymouth Street. The response that we received was that it was favorable, so we proceeded with issuing an emergency order to allow that. In between that time frame, though, on July 12th, Dr. Liu issued an amendment to her order to basically comply with the state's direction that if you were on the monitoring list for more than 3 days, that certain activities, indoor activities, had to shut down. And then, to much of our surprise, on July 13th, the governor came forward and applied the restriction of those indoor activities statewide, and then in addition implemented other restrictions for businesses on the state monitoring list. And so that went into effect that day. So July 17th, the City Director of Emergency Services issued an order for the long-term temporary closure of Plymouth Street. And then on July 18th, staff closed Plymouth Street. Right away, we started getting comments related to the closure. There were a lot of businesses that were unhappy with the long-term temporary closure. And so we received a request from the DBA yesterday morning to reopen the street. And so staff reopened the street this morning. So one of the things that is a loose end that we needed to tie up is a waiver. And so as part of the encroachment permit process, we're asking businesses that are expanding onto public right-of-way to sign a waiver. And so the waiver was included in the staff report. So for tonight, recommending that council confirm the Director of Emergency Services order for authorizing the temporary waiver of certain municipal code and entitlement restrictions for impacted businesses on Plymouth Street. So this is the second order. The first one limited to the the 2 specific Saturdays in the unknown date in December. This order expands it so it's not date specific. And then also pre-authorize the city manager or designee to enter into waiver, release, hold harmless, and agreements not to sue for activities pursuant to emergency orders subject to approval as to legal form by the city attorney. So we're requesting that council confirm the order and then also authorize the city manager to sign the waivers. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, makes sense. Any public comment?
One just came in from Thomas Burns. The governor is the king. His decrees are like the 10 Commandments. How did we get so blessed?
All right. About 11. Mr. Vice Mayor, do you have a comment? You're leaning forward. Okay. All right. So we're now at motion.
Actually, through the mayor.
Yep. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, comment first. I just wanted to say thanks to the city, Mr. Moody, everyone that worked, because what's gone on in the last couple of weeks is 2 things. It's the American spirit of ingenuity. Businesses have had to figure out how the heck to work around the requirements put on them. And then our city has worked to make things happen faster than I've probably ever seen a government system work. And it just shows the support that we have for our businesses and our business community. And, you know, I just appreciate the fact that the DBA requested to try that. We stepped up and did it, found out it didn't work. They unrequested, and we immediately removed it, just to show the overall support that we have for our businesses citywide. And Mr. Moody, there you are. You know, I said it earlier, and I want to say it public now. Thank you for you and your team that's out visiting all the businesses that are going out into public right-of-ways, getting into the parking lots to make sure everything's done so that people can stay safe. And our police department, fire department can get in. No one's getting run over, so we got the proper borders and stuff. Just overall, thank you to what you guys have done in responding to our business community. So, and with that, if there's no other, I'll go ahead and make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
All right. I move to confirm the Director of Emergency Service order authorizing temporary waiver of certain municipal code and encroachment restrictions for impacted businesses on Plumas Street, and pre-authorize the city manager or designee to enter into waiver, release, hold harmless, and agreements not to sue for activities pursuant to emergency orders subject to approval as a legal form by the city attorney.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? None. Thank you very much. Close out item number 1 of the special meeting.
Right.
All right. So we will close the special meeting. We'll go to future agenda items. I think we need to.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Do you want to revisit, so in regard to item 5, the Yuba Sutter Economic Development District, the 2020 to 2025 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So one thing that I wanted to point out is that it needs to be submitted to the EDC by July 31st. And so there's a bit of a time frame that we are up against. And so is there any desire to revisit this item? And Shannon would have to give us direction as to how we would do that, or the other options would be to schedule a special meeting, or to Yuba City could potentially be removed from the SEDS.
Diane, are you privy to, or are you able to answer the question of what the consequences are of us not accepting it?
My understanding is that, and I'm reading from the staff report, but it says an annually updated SEDS is required to qualify for U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration assistance under its Public Works Economic Adjustment and most planning programs. And so I know that to be part of a SEDS is required to be able to apply for those grant programs. And so it is important that we are part of a SEDS document.
So that's just not grants for our local EDC, but for the city itself?
For the city itself, yes.
Okay, all right. I think what we have here is an option of go ahead and accepting it with probably some probably clarification or some elaboration on your part.
And I'd be happy to. I can give a brief verbal presentation related to it.
Or we can take it upon ourselves to meet again because of the delay sometime between now and July 31st. I would be inclined to accept a presentation from Diana.
I would not. Someone else's priority or crisis should not be ours. I would prefer to study the report since it does have implications. Just my point.
Yeah, we're up against a time frame, but I agree with that. We pretty much went through it already. The crisis is going to become ours because of the time. Go ahead.
Can we accept this, like agree upon it, then amend it when they give the presentation next month? Can it be amended?
No, I mean, it's a tough spot because we are expecting more. We all have a copy of it. We've all gone through it, but we haven't gotten the details. So either we put a lot of funding in jeopardy, grant funding in jeopardy, we accept it, or we go ahead and meet for a special meeting. That's our decision tonight.
Through the mayor, I think maybe I have a little bit more of an advantage because I'm on the EDC board and committee, so I get to listen and hear more of this. I would be inclined to listen to Diana's presentation and invite EDC for future another presentation if we wanted to.
In the form of a special meeting, or just when they can get here, just so we can go over it in detail? after accepting it.
After accepting without no special meeting.
Okay.
To move it along through the mayor, I would be happy to abstain. I'm not going to.
That's fine.
On the spot. And, not that I don't trust her presentation. It's just, I haven't seen the document.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable voting on something I have not read.
That's fine. The SEDS is an informational document, correct? Or stats, there's nothing binding.
Right. And
right.
So Ben and I both participated in review of the document, and the projects that are in there for Yuba City are somewhat generic in nature to be able to maximize our opportunities as much as possible related to infrastructure expansion, things like that. And so we tried to make sure that it was very broad so that we would be eligible for a lot of different projects. The document itself, has a lot of really good elements in terms of goals, a vision statement, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis, and was really done through a community-driven effort, including all of the agencies to get feedback and input related to the document. And I think the misunderstanding tonight was that Ms. Stranix thought that the staff report and then having the attached document was sufficient to cover the item, and so was not anticipating doing a full presentation.
Yes, I believe that's accurate. It's my interpretation as well.
And then the other thing is that it's accepting, not approving the document, it's accepting the document.
Receiving it so we can move forward. Okay. Any other commentary before we move on? All right, Dinah, if you don't mind.
Okay. So, the contents of, this is the actual document itself, and the contents of the document, it covers a regional overview, economic development vision statement, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, disaster and economic recovery and resiliency, the strategic plan, and then evaluation framework. So with that said, the vision is to foster a vibrant, prosperous, and growing Yuba Sutter region through exceptional leadership and involvement of the community. The top 3 competitive strengths were cost of living, geographic location, and natural resources. The top 3 competitive weaknesses are career job opportunities, unskilled labor force, and infrastructure. The top 3 actions to better the region for residents include improve roads and connectivity, build affordable housing, develop more quality of life amenities, and the top 3 actions to better the region for businesses is to create a pro-business climate, focus on business attraction, and improve infrastructure. The 4 top priorities include innovation and economic development, workforce and education, infrastructure, and quality of life and place. So, the 4 goals of the Yuba Sutter region include create and maintain a competitive region through innovation and economic development. And so with that, there are 3 tactics: attract more industries to the region, boost entrepreneurial development, and maintain, promote, and expand regional business. Goal 2 is to develop, retain, and attract talent. The 3 tactics for that include increased collaboration between educational institutions, improve understanding of all ethnic cultures that live and work within or visit the region, create awareness of the value of lifelong learning. The 3rd goal is to improve and modernize infrastructure. Tactic 1 is to modernize the region's infrastructure to meet future demand and respond to changing business needs. Develop and improve alternative, multimodal, and intramodal distribution infrastructure, and promote transit planning to move people throughout the region and housing development. And then the 4th goal is to foster overall quality of life and place. So tactic 1 is to promote and market for continued investment in regional amenities, promote and support collaboration and shared resources for regional public safety, and promote the role of the Yuba Sutter Economic Development District. And so within each of these tactics, they have very specific goals in terms of how to address those. They also note some evaluation framework for each of those goals. And so, for instance, under the create and maintain a competitive region through economic development, they would like to see growth of complementary and supportive businesses to improve industry diversification, increase in number of startups, increase in technical assistance, and access to capital and educational opportunities for businesses. And then, for instance, on the improve and modernize infrastructure, they have progress of regional public works projects and expected impacts, increase in infrastructure funding and federal project investments for water, wastewater, transportation, broadband, et cetera, increased regional business growth resulting from improved infrastructure, and improved housing and affordable housing accessibility in alignment with future growth. And so with that, this document also has appendices in terms of a data profile, the SWOT analysis and online survey results, agriculture, economic profile, the specific public works projects, and then SED's regional resolutions. And so that provides a really quick and brief overview of the document. In addition, the staff report notes the different individuals that participated in the process and then provides a little bit more information related to the SEDs. So in a very quick presentation, that's a summary.
All right. Any public comment by chance?
Yes. One was from Thomas Burns, and he said, "Thank you, Mark, not like Nancy Pelosi." And then the second.
Thank you, Mark. What?
His comment on abstaining, he said he's unlike Nancy Pelosi.
Oh.
And then the other comment is, I would like to see the EDC report findings combined with the proposal by GSEC for a total view of opportunities to attract businesses and develop our local economy. And I didn't know GSEC merged with SACTO about 5 years ago. So I would want to know how, hang on, how SACTO didn't work for us and how GSEC enhances our economic development. And that's from Karen Hess.
Okay. Both, if Tom and you say Karen?
Yes.
If you're watching, those documents are publicly available, I'm sure. If they would like to review those. If they can't find them, give me a call and we'll set it up. It's no problem. All right, so now we have a choice to accept. We have one abstention, which is fine. Accept it and move forward, and then we can invite our CEO of EDC to come back and have a chat.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Before we get to a motion
All right.
or anything, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, clarity, because the staff recommendation is to approve the report, and I agree with the vice mayor. We're not going to approve something that we've had no time to go through and no presentation. So is it approve or is it accept? Because there's a huge difference between those two words.
It's my understanding that it was to accept. Also, I would note that the alternative says do not accept the Yuba City Economic Development SEDS report.
Yeah, I know they kind of
They do.
Contradict each other. So is that a question for Shannon? Does he know if we need to accept it or approve it?
Yes, thank you very much, Councilmember Shaw. The resolution before you this evening says that the City Council adopts the report and authorizes its submittal. If that is a concern for the council, you can change that resolution language to hereby accept the report and authorizes its submittal.
All right, thank you. And I will go back to Mr. Burns' comment because really he nailed it, not the part about you, Vice Mayor, but when he was talking about GSEC and the EDC. These are broad strokes, but as GSEC says, they're getting these hits to come in. And how are we getting plugged into that pipeline? Because when you listen to the two presentations over the years, there seems to be this disconnect that we're really not working as solidly as we have. GSEC is getting the interest in, but then even Barry alluded to the fact tonight that there wasn't this connectivity to our EDC. So how do we get those 3 businesses that are in the pipeline right now? I mean, this is great. This is wonderful. This is, our selling pitch and what we're going to do. But really, where does rubber meet the road? What are we doing with our EDC to get access to those three that are looking at the area? And that's really part of what I was hoping for tonight in the whole presentation. So I can't tell you how, it's unfortunate and I'm disappointed because I was really looking forward to those tying together because there is a disconnect. But we will have to decide as a council, because if we are simply going to accept this report, I can accept something that I have no control over. But if we are going to approve something, then I will remove myself as well, because this has not been vetted through. And the fact that we didn't get a presentation and we got it just a few days ago, we should have had this weeks ago and should have had a presentation. So I will leave that to the council. If we're comfortable with accept, I can accept something. I'm not going to approve it.
I feel the same way. And I don't know if it's even our, the numbers are the numbers. How long would it take us to dig down to verify every number to approve it, right? So I think accepting is the appropriate word. And Shannon, if you can hear me, I think it would be appropriate to amend the resolution to reflect that name, that word change.
Yes, this is exactly right. You can just make a motion to approve the resolution and substitute the word accept for the word approving.
Okay.
And does that affect, through the mayor?
Yeah.
Does accept or approve affect the end game here, which is the eligibility for the grants?
I don't have that information. That hasn't been provided to me from the applicant.
Sounds to me like they're using it interchangeably.
I believe that they did have a sample resolution. I believe this is the agenda item that did, and they used the word approve in their sample resolution. So we are changing it at least a bit from what it was. But frankly, between you and me, they're not likely to read it too closely whenever they get these sorts of resolutions. And if it is a concern, it might be an option for the council to issue a clarifying resolution at a later date if it becomes an issue.
Through the mayor, I'm looking at the resolution and I can see where our city attorney is speaking of that. I have no, I can work with accept the resolution to move this forward. I think that this is a document required at the federal level for some sort of demonstration that we as a council have accepted this document. I can understand Vice Mayor and Councilman Shaw without reading a document and feeling not completely, prepared to make that decision, and I respect that, and I understand that. I do agree, though, that accepting this document will help us with future infrastructure needs. And your questions, Councilman Shaw, with the relationship between Greater Sacramento and EDC, there is a room for better coordination, better partnerships. I do agree with you on that. I would be okay with the word accept at this point to move this along for us to be able to qualify for funding. And if there's needed to modify or amend the resolution, Shannon, you could guide with that process, right?
Yes.
Okay.
With that being said, through the mayor, I would move to adopt a resolution to accept the 2020 through 2025 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Report and authorize its submittal to the United States Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and second to accept the SEDS. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed and abstentions?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, appreciate that. Okay, so future agenda items, do we have anything that came in by chance, Trish?
Yes, there was one that came in way back on item number 4, when Barry Broom's thing, and it was from Dr. Tani Dotson, and she wanted to share regarding the last presentation that Yuba College stands ready to partner. We look forward to strengthening our partnership with Sacramento State and being a part of strengthening our economy. Thank you for bringing it to tonight's council meeting.
Through the mayor, is that the new president at Yuba College? I'm not sure.
What was the name?
Dr. Tani Dotson.
That's her.
Oh, okay, it's a new okay, thank you.
And then there was one other comment, that the part on the EDC report working with GSEC, that was from Karen Hess, and she made one additional comment, and the council member who said rubber meets the road expressed her sentiments exactly.
One question before we move on, Diane, is kind of going backwards, related, but maybe not. When are we due to renew our membership with our local EDC? Do you know?
It would be about this time because last year at this time during the budget process, council identified to go with the $25,000 option. And so I believe it'd be about this time of year. And I'd look to Judy to see if she knows, but I know GSEC is this time of year, and I believe the EDC is as well.
Okay. That would have been maybe a good idea for me to mention that to Brenda. That's part of the reason why we have Barry here today as well this time. Okay. All right, so let's go on to, we've got the revisit SEDS done. We are at reports and communications, unless I'm forgetting something. If not, we will move on to Councilmember Cardoza. Don't let me forget to adjourn the closed session when we're done either.
Okay. We'll start off this meeting with, I start with meetings. Attended Yuba Center Transit Authority meeting, the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency meeting for Councilmember Espandola. Attended the Yuba Center Homeless Consortium meeting. We were introduced to our new executive director, Johnny Burke. He has been involved in the community for the last 3 to 4 years. He's very happy taking this position and this challenge, and he gave a presentation. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come here and do a little presentation for the council also. And this takes a lot of strain off the, Chief Sachs. He was the director for a while, for the last year or so. Take a little strain off them so they can do their job duties. And he has a goal that he wants to do, and I'll let him mention it instead of myself. Attended the Feather River Air Quality Management District. I'm on the Policy Financing Committee. We're going to make a presentation to our Board of Directors next month for the final budgeting for 2020-2021. For Chamber, we had an ambassadors meeting. The Chamber, all we're doing is we're trying to help our businesses in both sides of the river. There's nothing going on at this time. Everything's been canceled for 2020. Hopefully we will be able to have the gala in 2021. And we are started this Takeout Tuesday. So if you folks would love to go out to a local restaurant, please take a picture and share it on the Chamber Facebook page. We'd really appreciate it. Takeout Tuesdays, please. And then for city and community events, council was all here last Tuesday night for proclamation for Women's History Month. I attended the grand opening of the newly remodeled Veterans Center out at Yuba College. They did a beautiful job, did a completely interior remodel for veterans, in, out, retired. They can go there, sit there. They have computers for them to use, future ROTC. The building's made. Family member that was a veteran, you were allowed to use this building. It was a beautiful remodel, and it was very nice. And then this morning, I helped with the Kiwanis. I got there a little late, but helped with the Kiwanis. And we served just 150 pancake breakfast meals to the community, for the children of the community. And that was at Butte Vista School. And we'll have one again next Tuesday at River Bend. And that's it for me this week. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Espindola.
Thank you, Mayor. The Latino outreach group with Dr. Liu that was developed about 3 or 4 weeks has continued to do some presentations at different local faith-based organizations. We also met today and we developed another plan to continue outreach and education to our Latinos. Also this afternoon, I did an interview with Telemundo, which is owned by NBC. So I did an interview with Susana Gonzalez. So it would be airing tonight at 5 and 6 and 11. And the purpose of the interview was to talk about the call center, to promote the call center and help the Spanish-speaking, English as a second language individuals to utilize the call centers and help our community. I also, as Councilman Cardoza mentioned, we had the honor of recognizing many women from our community, and it was a wonderful event that we hosted out here last week. And I thought we were going to show that at our meeting tonight, the video.
We're doing it August 18th.
Oh, I slipped the mind. Thank you. August 18th is going to, because there's a big reason for that. We'll talk about it then. But thank you, gentlemen, for being there and supporting our women in our community. I also attended the EDC Executive Committee, and one of the things that we talked about at the committee was the CVEDs, this particular document, and we also talked about the $600,000 that Sutter County has set aside to help our local community, small business owners. And the applications are out. I'm very pleased with EDC and Brenda's work on her team. They have also translated this application into Spanish and Punjabi now, which they hadn't done previously. So I appreciate for that. I also participated today. There was a digital diversity program from the League of Cities with the Latino Caucus, and it was the discussion was on the digital disparity between people of color and non-whites in that, or excuse me, white community, that there is this disparity of access to digital, and they were particularly talking about the speakers because it was people throughout the state, so we were muted, we were just able to listen in, and part of the discussion was about children and the lack of access to the internet or internet services, hotspots, and creating more disparity for children not being able to access their education. It was really a good presentation. It'll be on their website. So if any of you gentlemen are interested in watching, I highly recommend it. I learned quite a bit from that group. And that is it. Oh, I almost forgot. We had a meeting with Barry. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting me with Greater Sacramento Economic Council to learn more about and meeting Steve. That was the owner of Future Toyota. A good opportunity to ask some questions in advance about one thing that we really need to improve, and we've talked about it, is that relationship between Greater Sacramento Council and EDC. So thank you so much.
You bet. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had a busy week. Spent a lot of time this past week talking to a lot of different business owners as well as pastors from our churches and such. So first of all, I want to say thank you. I always acknowledge our team here at the city, but I really want to say thank you to just everyone in Yuba City this time, because I've watched our businesses step up even further than they've been asked and get really creative. I've watched the pastors lead their congregation and step up to the plate as well. So just want to say thank you to both of those groups. Been a busy week. We had Transit Authority, as Councilmember Cardoza says, give you an update there. Ridership is still low. It's starting to restore some as we begin to open more things up. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Martin and his team for working with us on Plumas Street during all the events and being very nimble in that. So that was greatly appreciated. We have got back to the Bogue Stewart Master Tax Agreement, Bogue Stewart Master Plan, and the tax agreement there had actually, I think, a productive meeting. I think that's finally moving in a good direction, and I'm looking forward to some good positivity coming out. I believe Vice Mayor, it's the next couple of weeks, and really hoping that we will have that and be able to bring everything on forward so we can actually get some work done there. Also, we started the budgetary process. The ad hoc committee, the Vice Mayor and myself started that today. I want to say thank you to those E-team members that's already been a part of this, and it's been very enlightening. This is, again, an education process that we all are going through together in a journey. And I feel that today's meetings were very productive because, as we've said multiple times, we don't know where this ship is going to kind of be landing and heading until about September, October. And so we're just taking a good look at everything to kind of figure out where we are to be proactive. And so as we come out of this October, November timeframe, look forward to working with the Vice Mayor and the E-team to bring back things to the council that will help us as a city get through everything. So that has basically, one other thing, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me fill in for you. Had a great time with those interviews on the radio. That was great. The main focus there was the new health directives and orders that came out, and our local guys here are really great. So I do appreciate the opportunity, and thank you.
And thank you. Appreciated that. Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Spent a good portion of the last week actually visiting the Midwest, and I think sometimes we get a bad rap here for our roads, and I can assure you that the roads in Iowa are no better than the ones in Yuba City in California. But on a serious note, continue to participate in the weekly briefings from Dr. Lou. Those happen on Wednesdays. I think there was one day when they brought it in a little early. These meetings are a two-way conversation with public health and then decision makers and staff members on both sides of the river. And I know sometimes there's a high expectation. I mentioned this at the last meeting, a very high expectation of the ability of city councils to impact decisions that are made at the state level and enforced at the state level. I can assure you again that this council remains extremely engaged with trying to get to something that's much more reasonable for our businesses. And I would echo the earlier comments that staff, you did a wonderful job trying to adapt, improvise, and overcome in regards to supporting our businesses, to the business community. I hear from you. I feel just as bad as you do, or even worse, because I think you look to us for solutions that unfortunately we just do not have the power to provide, but we're continuing to try to do so where we can. Speaking about public health, Mayor Harris and I visited the Department Operations Center. I think it was probably the week before last. And on behalf of the city of Yuba City, we bought the folks that are doing the contact tracing and Dr. Rice, we bought them lunch, and we conveyed the thanks from the city for the very hard work they do. If you looked at those folks, and our Brad McIntyre is part of that crew now too. He missed lunch though. Sorry, Brad. But they have a lot going on over there, and I know that they're trying to increase staff. And as the number of cases continues to increase, their job only gets much more difficult. And people aren't cooperating. We hear the stories of someone who becomes infected, and then for whatever reason, and there's a lot of different reasons, they're not cooperating with the contact tracing, which really impacts the ability of us to halt, or at least cordon off some of the exposure. So that's a challenge that they're dealing with on a daily basis. As far as city meetings, I attended LAFCO. It was a special meeting where our own Ben Moody did a nice job talking about the Bogue Stewart Master Plan to the LAFCO Commission. There is some work to be done in regards to some selection stuff, and And the mayor of Yuba City needs to get together with the mayor of Live Oak for selection of an alternate. But that was really the two takeaways from that meeting. As Councilman Shaw talked about, we did have, I consider it also a very productive meeting on the Master Tax Exchange Agreement. This meeting brings us as close as we have been. There are some questions that the county still has, but they're mostly, I think, they've looked at existing documents that have occurred in other jurisdictions as examples, which I think provide them with some sense of comfort moving forward. And I think that I would assume certainly by the middle point of August, if not late July, we may even actually be getting together for the next steps on that. That, of course, is a precursor to the Bogue-Stewart Master Plan. We have to have a Master Tax Exchange Agreement before we can begin the process of the sphere of influence and any annexations that might occur. The Budget Ad Hoc Committee, again, I don't want to be redundant, but at the same time, it's important for me to convey the thanks to Spencer and Lynn for their work in preparing the documents for us to take a look at, and for those members of our executive team that endured our never-ending questions with good patience and lots of good information. I will communicate back to the council again. Our idea here, or our goal here, is to come back to us as a group. I will say that it has been enlightening so far. We authorized a rollover budget, but at the same time, we need to really pay attention to what we need to provide here for essential services in the city, and I'll leave it right there for now. There's a lot of competing interests from outside organizations looking to us for funding. We are challenged with our own funding here in the city of Yuba City, so more to come on that. And I'm looking forward, we had a nice report from Ben Moody. Our reductions in development impact fees seem to actually maybe be spurring some development. I think there's more to come of that as we continue to emerge out of the COVID, but we think that spur of growth will obviously result in some revenue, which could help offset as well. That being said, busy times, and staff, hang in there. I can see it on your faces. You guys look like you're in the battle, and you look like you're a bit fatigued, but I know that each and every department's putting forth the effort because I hear from it from the community. So thank you.
Thank you, and that's exactly right. They look like it, and they are in the battle, and we really appreciate it, and it shows the work you guys are doing, so thank you very much. Forgot to call you, forgot to write it down, so I'm going to say it before I forget again. I haven't met with LAFCO, with the mayor of Live Oak, and we have that policy established for alternates. Apparently, my memory was correct in that we did already discuss it, but what I wasn't made aware of is LAFCO sent it back to us requesting a 2-year rotation instead of a 1-year rotation. So we have approved a 2-year rotation. The city of Yuba City is currently in the alternate role, so congratulations, Grace. You're there until July of 2022. Exactly. LAFCO alternate. That's you. You're the alternate.
You represent both cities.
Yeah. Yeah. This was kind of revenge for the last time you told me congrats on vice whatever of Gilsizer. All right. So we had a Sabufka meeting. It was a regular business. Those folks continue to work really hard protecting our area. A lot of work going on, particularly up in Oroville and the bypassed east levee. I too participate in the Dr. Lou's weekly calls. It's very informative, and Vice Mayor, I couldn't agree more. It is a two-way conversation, and we spend most of the time, they spend most of the time getting feedback from us, and they want to hear from us and what our input are and what our concerns are. So anybody in the community, if they have a question or concern, please feel free to bring it up and we'll elevate it. That's no problem at all. It's one of the purposes of that call. As already been stated, I met with Barry Broom via Zoom, of course. Greater Sacramento Economic Council discussed the value that our membership brings to our city, the bang for the buck, the return on investment, call whatever you want. He does a good job articulating the value that organization brings to our city. And you got to pack a lunch when you let him start talking. However, That's part of his charm. And he's a great guy, love him to death. He's very, very knowledgeable. I'll leave it at that. And then, yes, I too agree that some conversation, some more exchange of information between our local EDC and them would be important. Meeting with Chamber of Commerce. Again, these are all Zoom meetings. Zoom's pretty much my friend now. I tell you, it's nice to be home at a click of a button and we're done. But no, it's still hit and miss. But when I managed to do it, and I know Dan is probably smiling over there because every time. However, Chamber of Commerce, they were very supportive and thankful for the effort and the support the city gave to give it a whirl on Plymouth Street. Chief, I know you and Chief Landon put a lot of work into developing that plan, and I really appreciate and value your input. I think we came up with a good idea. I think it was workable. It just, seems like a good idea at the time. We'll give it another go. But also, it helped cement some relationships because we talked to a lot of people. I've been down there on Plymouth Street probably 5 times in the last 4 days. And, even when plans don't work, they know that we care. And we really do. And we listen, and the businesses do what they can do. They came up with some new ideas I think we might not see go away. For example, the seating for Happy Viking out back. It was quite nice. So, that was maybe not as discussed, but I still say it was a success in that regard. The Gilsize was canceled. Participated in the If You Need a Mask, Just Ask video that the county put out. I guess it's on YouTube, I understand. SACOG, Sacramento Area Council of Governments, we participated in a call and a meeting, Diane and I. And who else was there from the city? I'm drawing a blank.
That was it.
Remember? That was it? I thought, okay, anyway, forgive me about that. But anyway, it was regarding the bike path. We got the grant for a feasibility study to extend our bike path. Right now it ends at roughly Hooper. But we want to get it all the way to the side of our new park, back behind Walmart, all the way to Plumas Bridge, and hopefully beyond. I've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it for probably forever, at least another, hopefully 4.5-ish years. We'll see what the voters think about that. But I want to thank specifically George Barlow, who put together a lot of work on a video. If you're like me, you like visual stuff. And so when we're talking to people on a Zoom call that are sitting in Washington, D.C. or Ohio or Southern California, and they've never been to Yuba City, but they know how to put the rails to trails, if you will. He put together a great aerial video with a drone flying over the proposed route all the way through, and so they were able to see how we link up rural to housing, to retail, to recreation, to maybe some underserved or some lower income neighborhoods in our central core, and how it will link up ideally through over the 5th Street Bridge or the trestle on into Marysville. And Mayor Samayoa from Marysville participated in the call as well. And I think our next steps, of course, is to get a consultant to do our feasibility study and move on. But the fact that we've already brought him into the loop and we're capitalizing on the relationships we've already made, I think we can leverage that into some real results, which is my favorite word. So, and that will also compound into something good for our city too, because people will build upon that and branch out. And, the GHG stuff too, when people are walking, running, or biking, or scootering, or whatever, instead of in the car, that will help some of our air quality as well. I met with Pastor Richard from Bethel AME. I've had 2 meetings with him now over there in Marysville. They're creating conversation and meetings with folks and how to address some needs in our community. And he had a great idea, among many other things. Yes, the defund the police movement and everything they stand for and what they want is balanced out with some other opinions. But he's working on coming together with a response. And so he is looking for a site. He's open to even having in Yuba City where they can have resources available to folks for employment, but he also wants to have it more of like almost a showroom for some work they can do for homelessness. 2 or 3 small units, 1-2 bedrooms on the site, along with their office and some meeting room area, so they can use that as kind of a showpiece for what they plan on doing even bigger. Rather than talk, they're going to have something on site, and then so the people who might be interested in helping out or investing can see results of what they have in mind right there firsthand, and help 2 or 3 families at the same time. So he's a really, really good guy. I mean, we started going down tangents on a personal level. Who may have made a new friend. So I look forward to meeting with him in the future and his folks. And I already talked about LAFCO. So, and like everyone else has already alluded to, busy. We can't even say at all that we're doing. I'm sure just like staff, if we try to tell us what your last week was like, you wouldn't be able to come even half of what you've done. So we're with you. We support you. We appreciate everything you do. And we look forward to continuing our efforts to pushing through this current crisis and beyond. So I will go ahead right now. I want to close into closed session, but I'm going to close in memory of Mr. Francis Gerald, a.k.a. Jerry Fulkerson. He was a Yuba City firefighter for 18 years, began in 1967 before he retired from the city. He was also a veteran of the United States Air Force. So he recently passed away, and so we're going to close this meeting in memory of him and his service to our country and our city. So thank you very much.